The following podcast contains spoilers, adult language, and do you see?
See what?
Do you see?
No.
This is a message from the Office of Emergency Preparedness. Due to the recent crisis, we ask that you remain in your homes. Do not attempt to communicate or interact with the creatures, even if they are people you know.
Lock your doors. Bar your windows. Evil is coming. It's time for Aim for the Head, a horror apocalypse entertainment podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Diana and Steve.
Hi, welcome back to Aim for the Head podcast. I'm Diana.
And I'm Blind Steve.
Blind Steve. I love it. This week, we're going to be traveling back to the 90s to take another look at a movie that we both really have enjoyed in the past, 1997's movie Event Horizon. What's funny is when we were sort of looking for, I don't want to say things that were out of the, outside the box or whatever, but just like unexpected things maybe to cover on the podcast, because we've got a long list of like very expected sort of horror themed movies that we could cover, that we want to cover, as it were. And I did a search when I was looking for something to talk about last week, and I did a search that said, what's a movie that was, I can't remember if I said if it was liked by critics or if it was just something that you should revisit that maybe wasn't liked by critics, but now it's like a cult classic. And there was a list of all these different horror movies and whatever, but there were a lot of people that mentioned Event Horizon, and I thought that was really intriguing. And I really loved the movie right when it came out, and I remember really, really enjoying it in the theater and having a great time. And I know I had watched it when it came out on video at least a few more times, but it has been quite a bit, so I thought it was a good choice for us to cover, to sort of jump back in. And it combines a couple of things. I mean, we both love sci-fi, and I mean, we do cover, the bloody horror, so here we are. Sci-fi horror. There we go.
There we go.
So if you're new to the podcast, hello and welcome. Usually what we do before we get started with our individual points about whatever television episode or movie that we're discussing, we'll usually just do a real quick rapid fire type thing called Quick Thoughts. Then we'll get into the movie/episode description, and then discuss director and writer, and then we'll get into our individual points. So last week, when we covered You're Next, Steve went first and talked about his quick thoughts about the movie. And so it's my turn to go first in this episode. And I kind of gave it away, but I really, really like this movie. It had been a long time since I'd seen it. It's one of those ones that I think it comes up late at night on like TBS or something like that.
Yeah,
at least
right.
for a time period, it was definitely out there. And so I've definitely seen it a bunch of times, but it has been a hot minute since I'd watched it. So I was really excited to dive back in again. It's a nice reminder too of, your brain remembers Sam Neill, of course, and Lawrence Fishburne, but, Kathleen Quinlan, Jolie Richardson, Jason Isaacs, it's a really good supporting cast there. And that was really nice to revisit. I think it still holds up. It's a really great movie. It does a really great job of blending sci-fi and horror. The science is mysterious, but also, could it work? I don't know. It's interesting to see them use the things like fold space. It's very, Dune does that as well. They fold space so that you can travel. And so it was nice because you can see there's a lot of, it would be rude to call them derivative, but they did get inspiration from a lot of things. There's some stuff that I noticed, that Steve noticed, and we've got in our notes here. But overall, this is a really great movie. It's really worth a rewatch if you haven't seen it in a long time. We got lots of really great feedback from listeners and friends talking about how much they really enjoy this movie. So I'm really, really pleased with the fact that we picked this, because it seems like this is going to be a good one to chat about. So, Steve, how about you? What are your thoughts on Event Horizon as a whole?
Hated it. No, I'm just kidding.
Weirdo.
I know. I this movie, very vivid memories. I remember seeing it in the movie theater when it came out. And of course, this is the the sci-fi horror subgenre, and big fan of that. And I think when I watched this movie, and this has been my reaction ever since I first saw it back in 1997 to this very day, is that I look at this movie and I look at it and I can see in it a really great, epic sci-fi horror film in there somewhere.
Yes.
That I mean, like, I'm just like, man, this could be like the movie that everyone goes to when you think of sci-fi horror. It's like the top number 1A, like above The Thing, right? Above Alien. I mean, it would be this, and it's in there somewhere, but what we actually see is just kind of a really loud, messy movie. There's a lot of divided people on this. There's some people that really dig it, and there's a lot of people that are like, what the fork is this movie about? And that it's a Paul Anderson movie, and if you've ever seen any Paul Anderson movies, they're loud and messy. I mean, that's just like his style, okay? And this one is no exception. And so that's usually what I think about when I think of this movie, is the potential of that. Man, that there was so much that was there, that if it had gone in a different direction or had kind of explored a couple of different ideas than what it chose to do, I think it would be just one of those legendary movies. And even with them not doing that, this movie has we look at all the feedback we got. This movie has a huge cult following, which I have to point out is hilarious to me, because when this movie came out, it, in the words of Nick DiGilio, bombed. Okay. I mean,
it really did.
I mean, this movie, it had a budget of like $64 million, and I believe it grossed at the box office like $40 million. So I mean, it was a total stinker. And the critics did not like it. The obviously people didn't like it because they didn't go see it. And yet today, it's this huge cult following movie that everyone's like, oh my god, that movie is so great, and it's just like, no, where were you when it came out, So, but I think that's really interesting, because, and this is true, and interestingly enough, in science fiction and in horror, in those kind of movies, more so than any others. It sometimes have comedies as well, but I think comedies is just because people's comedic changes over time, and something that you might see that you think is hilarious, you watch it 10 years later and you're like, it just wasn't as good as I remember. Or more often than not, you see a comedy that you saw 10 years ago and you're like, yeah, that movie's not funny at all. And you're watching and you're like, this is the greatest, funniest movie I've ever seen. So I think comedy kind of comes and goes. But horror and sci-fi, I don't know what about it there is, but there's just been a trend of movies that come out and they absolutely tank at the box office, and yet 15, 20 years later, they're now regarded as like absolute sci-fi or horror classics and have these huge followings, right? And, again, Blade Runner, John Carpenter's The Thing. I mean, those movies tanked when they came out, and got ripped by the critics. Although Blade Runner, some critics did point out how cool it looked and that the visual stylings of Ridley Scott, but they were not kind to it in reviews in overall. And Carpenter's Thing, nobody wanted to see a slimy, icky alien. They wanted E.T., right? So, but yet both of those movies are come up at the top of the list when you mention science fiction or science fiction horror. And then the next year, Halloween 3, The Season of the Witch came out, and that movie tanked, and people hated it, and nobody saw it. Critics hated it. Today, huge cult following. People like, that movie is so great, and it just, I laugh.
It's so crazy to me.
Yeah, and Event Horizon right in there with them. in that when it came out, it was dismissed and like, yeah, it's a loud, messy movie. Don't go see it. It's terrible. Doesn't make sense. Whatever. And today, there is just a very, very, I think, a much bigger than people realize and very loyal fan base for this movie. So
it's interesting when you were talking about all those other ones that deserve a second look or that didn't get the love the first time around and achieve kind of culty status. It's funny, in that list that I found, that it was more of a discussion on Reddit where people were giving their thoughts on what it would be. The Thing was brought up many times, where people are like, it's the gold standard, and a lot of people talk about it as being not just one of the best sci-fi / horror movies, but it being one of the best movies
exactly
ever made,
yeah.
And I would agree with that, that it should be on a list somewhere of the best made. And I wouldn't say that Event Horizon is one of those, because I do agree there's some small issues with it, upon reflection, but there's so much good about it. And it really is, like you said, it's loud, it's messy. He took a lot of things and threw them at the wall, and a lot of them work. Some of them didn't, though. And I think, like you said, it's a lot of those other more sort of surface area things that are the reason why this didn't succeed like it could have. Because there's lots of movies that they'll get an okay review from, a critic, and they'll still achieve, they'll still stay at the movie theaters for quite a bit, Trust me, I worked at the movie theater when Scream was released. The critics did not like that movie. It stayed in that movie theater for so damn long. But, what I mean? It just, I think there was, it got a double whammy. The critics didn't like it, and then on top of it, like you said, there were these sort of cosmetic things where people were like, they want fun aliens, not gross ones, and they want, their scary movies to be something, this was a little more of an existential kind of scary movie than it was like a straight horror flick. You had to think, watching this one.
Sometimes to the point where your head hurts. And the last point that I would want to make is that just about why I like the potential of this movie more than the movie itself. And don't get me wrong, there are several moments in this movie that I'm just like, oh my God, more of this, please. But when I look at a movie, I always kind of go there. A movie, whether it's going to be good or bad, it kind of rests on three pillars, and the first one is the actors. And you got to have good actors or it's not going to be great, right? That's just a given. And in this case, this movie nails it. This cast is unbelievable. And I mean, I would think the guy who plays Justin, which is Baby Bear, the guy who goes into the airlock without his suit. Yeah. That guy, maybe you don't necessarily recognize, right, from going on. But I mean, if you look at his career, that dude is a prolific actor in TV and movies. So he went on to a great career, just maybe not as noticeable as some of the others. But other than him, everybody else in this movie had huge, massive careers. They're all people you should know. And so again, no problems at all with the cast. Okay, they hit it out of the park. But then the second leg or the pillar is the script, is the writing, and that I think is the big letdown here, in that the script, the guy who wrote it, Philip Eisner, who we'll get into, it's like I don't think he really knew what, like you said, what he wanted to do, and so he doesn't really pick a lane. And so it starts out, and is it going to be this atmospheric thing? Is it going to be more of a an action movie, which it kind of devolves into at the end? When you got Fishburne kind of and Neil squaring off and all that. So I think the writing is a huge letdown. And then the third pillar is the direction. And like I said, if you've ever seen, if you've seen this movie, basically, trust me, you have seen every other Paul W.S. Anderson movie, in that it's loud, it's noisy, there's plenty of explosions, there are plenty of scenes of characters getting blown through the air while pyrotechnics go off behind them in slow motion. And the dude, he absolutely loves the idea of seeing objects moving through the air. And in this movie, it's all the crap that's floating around in the ship. Which I don't know if you look at it, but like there's like tin cans floating around in that ship in the beginning, and I'm like, why is there a tin can on a spaceship? But it's in there, you know. But in other movies, it'll be like bullets. They sometimes do like the Matrix, like bullet cam kind of trick. He likes that. He's totally into all that. So this movie is just like just about any of his other movies. It's like I said, loud, messy, and you know, narrative is not necessarily his friend. When it comes to his movies, they're much more of like a visual event that there might be a story in there if you're lucky. So, and I think though, and then this movie I think also kind of has a fourth leg, and we'll get into this into my honorable mentions and what I would call studio interference. Because you know his original version of this movie is 130 minutes long, which if you do the math, that's 2 hours and 10 minutes. And the theatrical version, which is the version that we have just reviewed here, that both of us watched, and that has been available forever, I want to say is like 96 minutes long.
Yeah, it's just a scotch over an hour and a half.
And so literally that means 30 minutes of this movie got hacked out by the studio after the movie was done. And this was due to some of the test audience reactions. And I think also it originally got an NC-17 rating, and they're like, yeah, we just need it to be an R, because NC-17 proved to be the kiss of death for movies, that if your movie was rated that, nobody went and saw it. And anyway, as a result of this, like hacking lots and lots of stuff out, it makes the story even more confusing. Right. And so, you know, I think it's safe to say no one has ever seen Paul Anderson's true version of this movie and his vision of it. And I would guess if we did, it would be better than what we got. I'm just not sure how much better, if that makes sense.
Right. I think too. They also said too, like the stuff that I read online said that the stuff cut was even more like blood and guts and gore. So what plot-driven stuff that we gotten, so it would clear up some confusion about anything, or would it just be visuals, like you were saying? Like,
seeing as how it's 30 minutes, I just, for the life of me, I can't imagine some of the gorier stuff that I did a little research too, and I've never seen like a comprehensive list of what was cut. I just know of a couple of sequences that they definitely hacked out, but there are, to me, and we'll get to this in the points, there's at least one moment in the movie that when I'm watching it, I'm like, yeah, obviously there was a top to this scene that got hacked out.
Something happened
that
here,
they kind of pick up a scene like in mid conversation, and I'm like, ooh, I think whatever they were saying before this might have been important to hear. So, but yeah, again, I look at this movie on the potential level of it and just go, man, this could have been so amazing. And what we end up with is entertaining and fun.
Yes.
It's just not like one of those masterpiece movies.
Right. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
All right, cool.
All right.
Well, thanks for coming in.
Thanks to everybody. We'll see you next week. So next up, let's just discuss a really quick description of the movie itself. We'll talk, we already did a little bit on the writer and the director, but we'll talk about them a little bit further, then we'll get into our individual points. So let's head right into that next.
All right. So again, this is the 1997 sci-fi horror classic Event Horizon. And the description that we have is as follows. In the year 2047, a group of astronauts are sent to investigate and salvage the long-lost starship Event Horizon. This ship mysteriously disappeared 7 years ago on its maiden voyage. And with its return comes even more mystery, as the crew of the Lewis and Clark discover the real truth behind its disappearance and something even more terrifying. And that is your episode description.
Dun dun dun.
I know. And all I can say when I read that is, do they? Because, you know, I mean, there's not really a lot of discovering in this movie. It's a lot of asking questions and not much in the answer department.
And then after we're finished asking questions, we're going to ask some more questions. And then we might make some bold statements that pose more questions.
And then we're going to poke our eyes out.
Yeah, yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
And then sew them up with thread and make ourselves look amazing.
Hilarity ensues.
So let's talk. You just brought up when we were talking about some of the history of the movie itself. We talked a little bit about both the writer and the director, but let's chat a little bit more about them.
Sure. The writer is a gentleman, as I said, named Philip Eisner. And he has had a decent career back in that era. You know, he wrote a bunch of stuff. He produced a bunch of stuff. But I think the top things that people might recognize him from, or like, oh, I've seen that, is he wrote a movie called Sweet Girl, which came out a few years later or after Event Horizon. He wrote another movie called The Mutant Chronicles, which I remember when that came out, and that might actually have been a direct to cable movie or series or something. But I do remember that one. And then he also wrote several episodes of the TV version of Firestarter that came out in the early 2000s, and it was called Firestarter Rekindled was the title of that, and he was involved in that as well. So those are kind of the main things that jumped out at me that people might recognize from Philip Eisner. And then our director is, as I said, is Paul W.S. Anderson. So not to be confused with the dude that just won the Oscar for One Battle After Another. That's a different Paul Anderson. So this guy, I think, just being honest, not nearly as talented as the other guy. I'm just going to say that. It's not that I don't like his movies. It's just there are more movies he makes that I don't like than I do. I think the three best movies he ever made were this one, the original Resident Evil from 2001 that came, so a little bit after this. And then he made a movie with Kurt Russell called Soldier that I thought that's probably my favorite Paul W.S. Anderson movie. So, however, Paul W.S. Anderson, he gets a huge high five from me personally, because he was smart enough to marry or to figure out a way to get Mila Jovovich to marry him. So well done, sir. Well done. But yeah, so anyway, he directed the original Resident Evil, like I said. He ultimately went on to direct 4 of the 6 Resident Evil movies in that series, but he was involved in writing all of them. So clearly he is like the showrunner for Resident Evil, okay? And then he wrote and directed the reboot of Death Race that came out again in that that time frame in the aughts or maybe the early teens. And that's the Jason Statham version of the classic Roger Corman movie from the 1970s. And again, there have been multiple Death Races in this new reboot. I think there are 3 Death Race movies, and he, I believe, is involved in all 3 of them in one capacity or another. So again, he tends to get involved with the franchise. He's in it. So
in it to win it.
In it to win it. And he directed a movie called Monster Hunter, which some people might remember. He directed, like I said, Soldier with Kurt Russell, which is actually my favorite one of his. He directed the first Mortal Kombat movie from that area. He directed the movie Alien versus Predator, if you remember that film, with Lance Henriksen and Samantha Lathan, which is where they go to like the whaling place way up in like Norway or somewhere. It's all super cold, and there's this ice tunnel that leads underground, and then they find the big pyramid where the predators have the alien eggs, and they will let one hatch and then hunt the alien, and hilarity ensues. It was an interesting alien movie. Yeah. He directed the 2011 version of the Three Musketeers, which is not the Charlie Sheen version. Yeah, that was way earlier. Like Charlie Sheen and Kiefer Sutherland and all those dudes made Oliver Platt, right, was in it. It's
yes.
not that one. It's a later, more recent version of the Three Musketeers, and it's got like Mads Mikkelsen's in it, and Mila Jovovich is in it, and and yeah, it's a much more recent one. So anyway, so again, dude's got a prolific career, but if you look at all these movies, like I said, they're all loud and they're all noisy, and there are a lot of them that don't really all make all that much sense. So
yeah.
So that is the info on our writer and our director.
So let's talk first the sort of cold opening scene. We get this sort of established moment with you would say Weir is the main character, or is it like Weir and Russell?
See, that is one of my it's not on the list, but that is one of the questions I have for you, which is, please tell me who the main character of this film. I want to know your opinion, because as far as I can tell, there is no main character in this film.
If you really want to go down a brass tacks, I think it's a shared thing. It's Miller and Weir, really. I don't know why I said Russell.
Because you're thinking of Soldier with Kurt Russell.
Clearly, I can't stop thinking about Kurt Russell.
It's a great movie. Kurt Russell literally has like 12 to 15 lines of dialogue in the whole movie. It is unbelievable. But anyway, continue.
I don't know. So I don't know the answer to that question. I think there's no central main character. Unless you want to be like esoteric and say that the ship is the main character. Ooh.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. No.
So no. Yeah, I'd say there's no like main character. I'd say it's really kind of shared between Weir and Miller. So we get sort of the establishment of who Weir is in like our sort of coldish open, and it's a really creepy scene where he's clearly having these nightmares. This is, even without knowing the story, that this is going to be like his girlfriend / partner / wife or someone. It's a woman that he's very, he's got a relationship with, and she's obviously gone because he's all by himself at this like space station. But what's great is you get this real sort of creepy start with this like main character, or he's one of the main actors. So you're expecting Sam Neill to be like, if not the main, then one of the main characters. So he's one of the main characters. He's established in the movie as this, scientist. He's had this loss in his life. It's haunting his dreams, yada, yada. And that's really sort of all we get to know about him, except that he's on this like, moon station, this permanent moon base thing. And then really you have to hand it to whoever did all the typing for the text on the screen, because really that's the character that's doing all the heavy lifting in the first like 5 minutes of the movie establish like where we are now, what happened before, and then what's happening, what is set to happen, so that we've got we find out that there was this ship, the Event Horizon, that it went on this journey, that it's gone, but now there's been this tiny bit of contact. They're sending out a search and rescue crew, and that's what we know. And then boom, movie starts, and you get everything. So,
yeah.
So yeah, it's a pretty decent opener.
I agree. It's very creepy and unsettling. Absolutely. And just to answer my own question, I think who's the main character in this film? I think if you go by just like standard like movie credits and by who at the time was the biggest name, you would say Larry Fishburne is the main character. I mean, he gets top billing in the film and so on. But if you look at the movie itself, I don't know how you can say that, because you don't, the character of Miller, they don't really develop him at all. They don't really develop anybody in this movie all that much. To be honest, yes. But he is very gruff and is not very open at all to anyone in the movie. And we ultimately find out who the fiery guy is that shows up on the ship, but it's kind of like pulling teeth from that dude to get him to say anything about it. So he doesn't really, for me, fulfill a main character. It's certainly not somebody we can really root for, because he's so closed off.
Yes. I mean, you sort of get more. You get more from Kathleen Quinlan's character.
I
know?
agree, and I
Yeah.
think, and again, that's confusing to me too, because that character clearly isn't the main character in the movie. But the Sam Neill, one of the things that I've heard about this movie over the years is a lot of people say, "Oh my God, it reminded me so much of Alien," with the people trapped on the ship. And I don't really agree all that much, because Alien, to me, the alien is like a thing that everybody believes is real and knows it's out there and it's hunting them. And it's
Right.
like just another organism. Whereas this, you kind of have it's the ship, and some people are into it and believe it, and other people are like, yeah, that's full of crap, I don't believe. You know what I mean? It's a different kind of thing. And when I think of this movie, what comes to mind for me is I think of The Shining in space. That's what I think of. And I think Weir, the character of Weir, I mean, he is clearly the Jack Torrance
for sure.
of this group, but again, in Shining, the Jack Torrance, that was the main character. But the way that they do this movie, I don't think that Weir is the main character of this movie.
No.
And I think what you said was correct, in that almost by default, the main character of this movie is that damn ship.
Agreed. Here's a question for you, because you would agree, like, the main character is the one that you really couldn't do the movie without them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, imagine if, I'm not saying Weir's dead, but maybe he doesn't join them on the journey. He just, like, say, briefs them before they leave or whatever.
Right.
But they go on this journey, and they do everything that they did anyway. Would the movie turn out the same way?
Yeah, no. I don't
With or without Weir there? I think that's your thing to answer. Like, would they have, Justin, would he still go into that chamber? Would that moment still happen? Would they still, because everything that came out of that turned into, like, well, we've got to repair the ship, and we've got to do this, and all this,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems like the ship itself is kind of sentient and was doing things on its own, at least, according to Weir. So would all of those things, at least in some version, would they have ended up with a similar outcome, no matter what, if Weir was there or not, I guess is the question. And that sort of tells you if he is or isn't a main character.
Yeah. Oh, I he definitely is a main character. I'm just saying,
not
who is the main character of this, movie? And I think that's a problem with the script, is that it just, usually the biggest argument in any horror movie is that there's very little development of the characters, and they're kind of these cardboard cutouts that just move from place to place and then get killed, right?
Right.
And this movie is no exception, in that there is some development on a couple of them. And again, Kathleen Quinlan's character of Peters is, I think, the one that they do the most with. But even then, it's not all that much, because, oh my God, I have questions about that woman in this movie as well. But yes, it's a very confusing point to me, is that who exactly is, who are we supposed to root for? Who is the main guy or gal? But to the other thing that you mentioned, which is all of the sort of text that we get, these title cards that kind of give us
exposition text,
Yeah, and it's sort of hey, here's where we are in terms of our space program. And I laugh, and not just at this, but any of these movies that try and set it, in the future, and not like, thousands of years in the future, but just like relatively soon. I mean, I would point out this movie takes place in 2047. That's like 21 years from now.
Right.
Okay, it's not like it's that far away.
No.
I mean, there is a chance statistically that we could review this movie again in 2047. Okay.
We'll meet back here. It's only 20 years from now.
I will be at the old folks' home. So yes, but I mean, it's I just laugh, because they basically said, this movie was made in 1997, and they looked at the current state of our space programs across the planet and went, you know what? In like 18 years, absolutely, we will have permanent manned moon base. Yeah, that's gonna happen, which is the first
Sure.
thing they tell you. And that was my first point. It's like, you remember that permanent moon base we built in 2015, right? You know?
Yeah, weren't we just up in space and they were having problems because something was freezing all the time?
Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, and then like the let's just throw the Event Horizon out because it's clearly got the gravity drive and it's like an experimental thing, so whatever. But look at the Lewis and Clark, the rescue ship,
Yeah.
and that ship is science fiction to us today. Absolutely.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
you know, they go from Earth to Neptune in like 52 days. Okay,
Yeah.
that is under 2 months. And if you're not aware, Google Neptune. And it is I don't know how people feel about Pluto. I myself consider Pluto to be a planet and include it, but it has been kicked out of the planetary family, so that now Neptune
It's
is the last planet in our system, right? And I am not exaggerating. It is billions and billions and billions of miles away from us, okay? And they get there on that ship in less than 2 months. And right now, which now is, you know, many years past when this movie was made in real life, and it with the fastest our ships can go now, it takes 6 months just to get to Mars, which isn't even halfway to Neptune. So it's just I just chuckle at what they kind of assumed the development and evolution of our technology was going to be.
Well, at least it was still like you know, an alien style, like, hey, you have to be in some type of stasis until
Yeah, right. You know, I laughed when like 2001, which came out in the late 60s, right? Stanley Kubrick movie. It's got the monkeys at the beginning. It's a classic, awesome film. Yet every time they land that lander on the moon and it gets lowered down this massive elevator into this huge complex, I giggle because I'm like, how many billions of dollars would that cost to build, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like one of many bases on the moon, and it's just it's just silly to me, like what a lot of these people assumed was going to happen. But again, it's a science fiction story, so you go with it. And so you're right, we kind of get that real quick, like, you know, the moon base is set up, and then I think what they start mining the asteroids or something is the next bit we get.
Yep.
And then it's they build the Event Horizon, and then it on its maiden voyage it vanishes without a trace, and then boom, it shows up again, and we see it in orbit around Neptune, and then it smashes back to good old Dr. Weir. And you're right, he's having these bad dreams of his incredibly hot, smoking, naked wife, and you know, clearly something bad has happened because it turns kind of gruesome and icky at the end of his dreams, right? And he wakes up, and then you get that great shot where he's like shaving, and then he's eating his breakfast, but you suddenly realize he's upside down.
Yeah.
And the camera pulls back, and you realize that he's like in orbit in a space station.
Yeah.
Somewhere, right? And again, we get this. It's to let us know that yes, the space program for the Earth, the planet itself, is very, very, very far beyond what we have, and advanced, and has this massive permanent space station in orbit, you know, clearly where this guy lives, you know. So yeah, and like you said, then we get the Lewis and Clark is going to be sent out there to see if there are any survivors and to try and salvage the ship, which I should point out they make no attempt to do, and and we're off and running, right?
Yeah.
So off we go,
Yeah.
right? And so yeah, so and you know, they all go into stasis, but that leads to yet another weird dream,
Yes.
hallucination
Yes.
thing, right? Where, you know, he like wakes up, and he's the only one that like has come out of the state, like the fluid drains out of the tank that he's in, and he's, you know, walking around in his you know, spandex boy shorts there, right?
Yep.
And you know, I'm sure all the Sam Neill lovers out there were like, yes, more please. And And he then runs into his wife again, and she's like sitting on the bridge. And again, I would point out, someone get this girl a shirt because she's still naked, and this time I think we actually see she opens her eyes finally, and we realize that she doesn't have any eyeballs. And she's sockets is all she has,
right.
and it's very scary. And then the movie tricks us, because then he wakes up and he's still actually in the tank, and he freaks out a little. It is like pounding on the glass and stuff, and then finally it opens and he gets out, and we find out that the other crew is already woken up, and he's kind of like the last person to be revived, and it's like, okay, calm down, it was just a dream. Everybody breathe, and then that sets them up, because they're like right there, entering Neptune's orbit, and we're ready to, move on with the plot. So,
how do you feel about the use of their stasis being like the thing that's, because having you be like suspended in water is a different way to look at it. We're used to people just like going into like a tube and falling asleep. Is a much more normal version. They're in some sort of environment like that, and they're either lay down and go to sleep, or they stand up and go to sleep, or whatever. But this is a little different. You're suspended in water, and I guess maybe you get nutrients through the water in osmosis while you're who knows. But I just think it is interesting. It's a way to sort of take that idea of like being in stasis and sleep mode for X amount of days, and it's just a sort of a different sort of setup for that, which I thought was cool.
Yeah, I did too, and they kind of explain it away there early on, in that I guess they say that when that ship accelerates, it like your body would take like 30 Gs.
Yeah.
And so they have to be in the fluid to not like it smushed.
Yeah, he was like you liquefy. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a double, like a combo plate of it's a spin animation thing where you're going to be asleep during the majority of the trip, but it's also there to ensure that you don't turn into like Gumbo, because the ship is accelerating so rapidly when it goes that you can't be out. You have to have that extra. You have to have that fluid there to absorb a lot of those G's. So yeah, and I was okay with it. I it was different with the fluid, obviously, than what, like you said, normally they just like get in like a little bed.
Yeah.
And just like go to sleep, but I was okay with it. I thought it worked. I that didn't, from the sciencey part of it, that didn't bother me at all.
Yeah. All right, so we get they all wake up slowly. For it's a scene we've seen a couple times before, where everybody sort of slowly wakes up out of stasis and they get started in their little ship journey. I feel like I've seen this scene before, and I can't.
It's possible.
It's possible. Mostly.
Mostly.
So we understand now who everybody is, that everybody on the ship is part of this salvage crew except for Weir. Weir is brought along as like the expert because he knows about the Event Horizon. And
he built her.
Yeah, and he gives them a little bit of a taste of why they are going where they're going. And it's funny because since the Event Horizon disappeared, they tried to go out and see if they can find it before, and people have died going out and so crews, this has already been done. So when Event Horizon is mentioned, all of the salvage crew people are pissed off. Because I guess apparently it was some sort of emergency that they go, and they were brought off of they were on leave for a certain amount of time, so they were all kind of salty that they were called back to go on this mission.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So they're very
they kind of suggest that they just finished a tour. And like kind of like firemen, you work so many days, then you get so many days off. Right. And that's kind of like they're like, hey, we're back from, a month or 2 months or whatever out in space. We now get a month at home.
Right.
And that was canceled, and they're kind of thrown out at the last minute, which I think if anyone knows anything about how NASA plans space missions, they are absolutely thrown together at the last minute like that always. So, I mean, that's very normal, right? I mean, it's like, come on, Yeah, and this is part of the movie, and I get it that this is the setup of the movie because you can't have, if you have like what the normal amount of people who would go on this kind of mission, you don't really have a movie because there's way too many people,
Right.
But it strains credibility to me that it's like, really, you're gonna send one ship with like five people out there and one expert. It's like there are so many other people out there that they could have gotten to go along with them. Like, what about like the backup crew for the Event Horizon?
Right.
That trained with them, that know the ship backwards and forwards. That, I mean, it was only 7 years ago, so you have to assume some of them are
Still around.
most of them are going to be around. Most of them are going to be alive, at least, right? Some of them probably still are astronauts in the program.
You hope so.
And then you don't, you know what I mean? But no, they're not there. There's no but other technical guys they could get. And what's more, they don't bother to train the crew they send at all. It's like, why wouldn't you brief them on the Event Horizon, not necessarily on the history of it, but just like, these are the blueprints. You're going to learn the layout of the ship. You're going to learn where everything is.
Right.
So when you get there, you're not walking around going, I wonder where everything is. I mean, there's just so many like normal mission things that particularly in with NASA and space, that, I mean, those guys, they practice for months.
Right.
Before they go up there. And again, I get it. It wouldn't be a movie, I understand, but you're right. It's we're sending you out at the last minute. So yeah, the crew is kind of salty, kind of, they don't want to be there. And then when they find out that, oh, by the way, the ship that we're going out to rescue is like the flying mission of outer space, right?
Yeah.
That is even more, like you said, where they're like, yeah, F this, let's just go home.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I get it. I wonder too, like, if part of what was, and you said that there were some scenes that you knew were part of the things that were cut and left on the floor, but I wonder if maybe they leaned into, like, I always thought that there's a little bit of a sort of conspiracy theory in there of, like, you know, was Weir expecting things to go sideways when they got there? Based on, I mean, they did get the transmission, which is my next point, which, they have this transmission, which is all kind of garbled and hard to understand, but they do eventually get to the audio, and it sounds like the guy that's in there is saying, liberate me, and in Latin, that means save me. And so it's curious that they would, maybe have, did Weir know that they were heading into something that could turn sideways? And did he not care? Like, I'm there for the science of it all. We're there to see, like, what this amazing ship was able to do. Like, and would that be, like, because we're used to the Marines in Alien were very, on a need-to basis. Those Marines didn't know what they were getting into in the second movie. They were given very minimal instruction. They just did what they were told. And in this instance, I wonder if it was a little bit of that too. Like, is there some sort of larger governmental purpose that was like, well, we're not going to give them any information. We're just going to send them out and, we'll see what happens kind of thing. So it's curious to me that, like you said, that they didn't have any information, and Weir does have information, but he's a scientist. So he's got to think, like, well, something weird happened, because the ship wasn't even, they couldn't find it. And then all of a sudden it appears and sends a message. And there's a note in there about save me. Like, it feels like we're walking into something bad here.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's certainly not like what you would normally expect to happen,
Yeah, exactly. So they do meet up. They get into action right away, which is one of the things that's interesting about Miller. And like you said, we don't get a lot of layers of Miller, but one of the layers we do get is that he's very business by the book. We're not here to fool around. We're not here to party. He's got a very Apone quality about him, where he's like, we've got shit to do. Let's get it done. We're here for a job. We're not here to hang out. And so he gets everybody rolling right away. And when they take this journey into the atmosphere, and it's a really, really hellish journey to even get to because they lock onto the ship, they get the location, but it's all surrounded by all this there's a bunch of fog around it, and they can't visually see it, but they're coming in really close and fast, and when they do eventually get there, it's like, oh my god, there it is, and they have to like put reverse thrusters so they don't crash into it. So it's this really tense scene. And then when they do eventually they dock by sort of clamping onto the side of the ship, which I thought was cool, because usually you see all these movies where they're like, oh, well, we're going to line up our thing and go in here, and it's all very like almost made to, work together. And they're like, no, our only way we can dock here is we've got a big clamp, and we're going to just like we had to use a big like wood clamp on the side of the whole ship. They're like, yep, we're just going to go here. And I loved that moment when Weir's like, he's like, well, it's not very structurally, and then it's like,
he's like, it's not a load-bearing structure.
It's not load-bearing.
And it's like, it is now, Doctor. And it's like an antenna array or something, and they smush it with these big claws.
It's great. It's really great. So they basically, everyone has a job, all of these different people on this salvage, one person does one thing, another person is looking at, what's Kathleen Quinlan's character again?
Peters is her name. Peters is her name.
I knew it was a P. So she's sort of looking at the message, and then she's like, ends up in like the, at the bridge, and then Justin puts on the outfit and he goes in another direction, and they're all sort of like spread out and doing different things, checking out the ship and seeing what they can find.
It's Miller, Peters, and Justin when they enter the ship, and they enter, and the geography of the event horizon is there's like this front section where the crew operates most of the time. Then there's a long access tunnel that connects to where the engine is, the engine room. And of course, we find out from Sam Neill that it has this like experimental gravity drive that ultimately we find out like it basically creates its own like stable black hole. And that's how it gets the power to, like you said, to fold space-time. And he does this whole example where he takes a piece of paper and it's Smith's one of his like centerfolds, and he pokes a hole in one end and pokes a hole in the other end, and he's like, what's the shortest distance between these two points? And one of them goes a straight line, and he's like, no, the closest distance is 0. And he then folds the paper so the two holes are right next to it, they're right covering on, and then he sticks the pen or whatever through it, going, that's how the event horizon works. And so clearly for crew safety, those engines are far away from where they're going to be operating the majority of the time. And they literally dock like right in the middle of that tunnel, that access tunnel. That's where they come on board. And then Justin goes to the engine room to check it out. And then for some reason, the medical person, Peters, she goes to the bridge. I'm not sure why. And Miller, the captain, he goes to the sick bay. Again, okay, wouldn't that be the other way around? But okay, whatever. And
maybe they toss a coin.
I don't know.
I don't
know. So yes, and that's like the initial group that goes on board to kind of check it out, and they scan it, and they know that it has atmosphere, but they point out that all the heating units are not functioning, so it's super cold, and they comment that nobody could survive that kind of temperature unless they were in stasis. Is the only chance for survivors. So they're not expecting to see survivors, but they like run like the life scan, and it like the whole ship lights up, indicating that there's like life everywhere, but it's all indeterminate, which again, I'm sorry, huge red flag. It's like, well, we came all this way, it didn't work, let's go.
It's literally it's like there's movement all over the place, can't lock in, or like it's all over the place. You're like, get
time
out.
To go. Yep. Sorry, we can't be staying, but.
And what's great is that they kind of like the one guy who's on the staff, Smitty, who's like, he's like the engineer, it seems
he's
like.
The pilot.
And he that's right. He literally, he's like, I'm that place is death. I'm not going on there. Yeah. And he won't. He doesn't the whole time.
He only goes in very reluctantly.
Yeah,
when they kind of have to.
Their ship is going to
Yeah,
blow up.
yeah, but that's it. Yeah, and we should point out that Smitty is played by Sean Pertwee. And
Hmm.
most people would recognize him, I think, from he played Alfred on the Gotham TV series on Fox for the whole run. But I mean, that dude is science fiction royalty in that his dad, John Pertwee, played Doctor Who in the 1970s. So yeah,
Ooh.
and I mean, if he's shown up in a lot of great stuff. There's another movie that came out a little bit after this, and we have not covered it. I've thought about possibly doing it at some point, and it's a apocalypse movie called Doomsday, and Sean Pertwee is in that movie, and has a gruesome death in that movie as well. So, yeah. So that dude is Sean Pertwee, and he's amazing. And then the other guy that's kind of low build in this because of when it came out is the character TJ is played by Jason Isaacs. And oh my God, that
Yes.
dude! Everybody has seen that guy. He is like I said, I think the cast in this movie is top notch. They're all talented
Oh, yeah.
people. Jolie
Yeah.
Richardson as Stark, she's great.
Yep.
Kathleen Quinlan as Peter. I mean, yeah, everybody in this movie is top notch, absolutely. But you're right. You're right.
Agreed.
Smitty's like, that ship is screwed. I'm not going in there. Why?
Nope.
Let's get out of here. Why are we even sticking around? Is kind of his thing when he even finds out that it's the Event Horizon in the first place. So yeah. Absolutely. So they're kind of looking around, right? And this I know this gets to one of my points and one of your points
Yep.
that we had here, which is I'll do mine first because it's not nearly as creepy and icky as yours. um,
Yeah.
but Miller is walking around and he's in the sick bay, and there's no sign of that. Not only is there no live crew members, there's no dead crew members.
Yeah,
They're
there's
just
nothing.
gone. And he literally at one point says, "This place is a tomb." And I
Yeah.
got Lord of the Rings feels. I did,
Yeah.
from what Boromir said the dwarf halls when they go into the
Yes.
mountains when they do that bit in the Fellowship. So, but
Yeah.
then when he says that, then it's like, oh no, just wait, it's going to get worse.
Yeah, because Peters is like we said, she's on the bridge and she's looking around, and the thing is that because there hasn't been any heat on, there's like all kinds of debris roaming around, so there's things floating, and there's no gravity. They have to use their gravity
Mhm.
boots, so they're sort of like got these magnetic gravity boots, so they're able to walk around and not float. But there's stuff floating around in where they
Mhm.
are, and she gets to the bridge, and she's looking for video communication, people, any information. They're fact finding, and she's says over the communicator, she's like, "I'm on the bridge. There's some
Mhm.
blood," and my reaction to that is, I'm sorry, some
Oh yeah,
blood?
yeah.
And you included in your point too, but it's like there's like over by the edge of the bridge, the bridge usually has like a bunch of really nice windows and stuff like that you can look out so you can fly the
Right.
ship. And there's these really big windows, and they are covered with like blood and guts. There's even like, I think when you look at it closely, there's like some
Oh, there's
skeletal
bones and
pieces
skulls and
too.
oh yeah, yeah.
So it's clearly at least some repository of like what happened to the
Mhm.
crew, because we're 7 years now. So at this point, we're looking at like dead people, skeletons, whatever. And there's a body that floats like towards
Oh
her, and
yeah.
she sees it, and it's so crazy because it's like it's floating, so it feels very sort of lifelike, but it's just because of the zero G's.
Yeah.
And it's just like sort of floating around. And she freaks out, but then she's very clinical about it and is like, oh, it's got like this kind of damage, and it looks like it went through this and whatever, and it shouldn't be that way. And it adds more layers of mystery, like what happened to this guy? They don't even know. And his eyes are missing, right?
Yeah, and that's like on the bridge, because they're watching on their cameras, because all these spacesuits have cameras. Like Smitty and Stark are there, and they're like, what happened to his eyes? And I think Stark goes, explosive decompression, but CJ is right there to be like, yeah, that wouldn't happen that way. So he thinks it's much more like an attack. Like someone forced like grab a spoon and like scoop the dude's eyeballs out, and you're right. It's great because she's on the bridge and literally there's like just like a little smudge of blood on like the corner of one of the consoles, and she's like, oh, got some blood here, and then literally the camera like pans over and you see these window wells, like you said, and it's just like, imagine if they like took like 10 people's bodies and like put them in a blender and pureed them into like a real nice goopy kind of stew or gumbo, and then poured it on these window wells. That it's like a little blood. What are you, nuts?
If you've ever, like when you were in college or in high school and let's say you had a bowl of tomato soup and you brought it into your bedroom and you put it under your bed and forgot about it, and you were like not good about cleaning up after yourself, let's say. If you found that bowl like 3 weeks later and it was like dried and like, sort of like, coming up along the edges or whatever, this is what it looked like. It looked like someone had poured a bunch of blood there, and then it sort of dried and petrified. And because this is, deep space and they don't have any heat, everything's frozen too. So everything's cold inside. So it all just sort of froze in place. It's literally is enough blood for like at least a handful of people. They don't linger on it, so you don't really get to know like, well, what does it entail? But it's enough to creep you out.
Oh yeah.
And she's just so calm, and there's some blood. Some blood?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
Well, and for my money, it's like for the rest of the movie, like nobody at all makes a big deal out of it when they're like standing in that room and it's just all like caked on everywhere. I'm like, is this not like in the manual somewhere? Does it not say this is bad?
Yeah. At some point, someone's got to be like, listen, that's definitely the elephant in the room. Or the 10 dead elephants in the room in the corner to talk about that, and they just never.
Well,
really
again, like I said, there is a scene, and I think it's after the fiery dude comes out of like the water in the engineering room and like knocks Miller back. Literally, it just cuts away, and I mean, as the audience, you're like, who was that? And what happened to him? Did he just I mean, because he comes out of the water and then the scene ends, and you're like, what happened? But anyway. When it cuts to they're on the bridge and it's Miller talking to Weir, and they're literally looking at those 3 windows and all the goop that's there. And it starts and Miller literally goes, "What happened here, Doctor?" And of course, how is that guy going to know? He wasn't here, and he stammers through, I not really. But that screams to me that, there has to be 30 seconds more of that conversation that we don't get to see, that they cut out and jump to that point where I'm sure I'm not sure, but I would not surprise me if Miller's like, you see all that blood there in the windows, what happened here, Doctor? You know what I mean? It's like but they don't. You're right, no one ever addresses it in the movie. They're all just like, nothing to see here, let's go.
Just move along. Nothing to see.
And then the other one of my other points was, while they're that's 2 of the 3 people that are exploring. The third one is Justin. He goes into the engine room, and as he's walking through, they have these like magnetic containment areas that you have to go through to get to the core, and I think that's for safety or something. And he goes into one of them, and I mean, it literally is this like big. It's a corridor, and around it is this like swirling, like they're all like blades. Imagine like a blender is kind of what it looks like. Yes. And his comment is, he asks Weir over the radio. He's like, I'm in this corridor thing, and he's like, oh yeah, it's a magnetic containment thing. It's to help control the magnetic forces or whatever. And Justin goes, looks like a meat grinder to me.
Yep. It's a great, and he's just like, and it's true. It does look like you're inside some kind of like cheese grater of some kind. It's very interesting.
Oh, yeah.
And so what happens in a lot of these kinds of movies is, going in, that Justin, based on where he's heading, because he's heading towards the engine room, and when he gets in there and there's like the devices in there, which they call the gravity something. What's the name of it?
The gravity drive is
drive. Yeah. It's got, so it's, it's these, the spinning, like, outer rings kind of thing, and then this big sort of orb in the middle, and everything's got like a sharp edge to it. And
they're like big spikes in the wall. I'm like, who built this place?
It's very like, you walk in and just the design of it is aggressive. So like, you feel like this is not like there's no happy fun times that happen in this engine room. This is all very like, it's got a job to do and it's gonna beat the shit out of you if you're in this room. I don't know. But as soon as he goes in there and it like lights up and it starts to spin a little, in your brain you're like, I've seen this movie before. Something bad is going to happen to this guy, and it's going to be because of his curiosity. So there's like, he can sense that there's like this wall of like, there's like this liquid that's sort of reflecting back to him in the center of this whole like sort of circle, spinny thing, the gravity drive, which we find out like sort of the name of it later. He touches it, there's like some, and he puts a finger in and pulls it out, and it's a very Stargate-y moment where there's like this liquid there. Part of me wanted him to like drink it, but he didn't. But he touches it, and then he's curious, so he literally sticks his hand in, and I'm like, and I'm just sitting there, I'm like, no.
Yeah, it's like, why would you do that? Why?
Right. So he has his hand in there, and then changes his mind, tries to pull it out, he can't, and he gets sucked in. Now he's on like a tether, and he's they've got him on like this grind, you can sort of like roll him
winch
up or whatever. Oh yeah.
Use your words.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, it sounds like 2 syllables. And so he's on this winch, and they try to like stop it and try and roll back the winch to like sort of bring him back, and then Miller goes down there in his suit. He's got his like space suity thing on and goes down there and sort of saves him, right? If memory serves.
Cooper is
because they pull him out, and he grabs him and takes him where he needs to go, to sick bay or whatever.
Yeah, you're right. He sticks his hand into like the blackness of the singularity, right? And the 3 spinny rings all kind of line up, and then it all like gets really bright light, and then it turns just super black. Yeah. And again, the guy's first reaction is, "Ooh, I want to stick my hand in that." And so he does, and then like literally like something grabs his hand, and he's like, ah, and he gets pulled into it, right? So he's gone, and then all the line on his tether gets pulled in to where it like runs out, and they have a counter, and it's at like 300 meters, so a lot of line goes out, and it's at that point that Cooper, he's like the rescue tech. So he's the guy that he's the guy that usually puts on the spacesuit and goes outside and does stuff. He comes racing to help him, and he is literally following the line through the umbilical and then through the corridor and then through all the meat grinder and all that stuff. And as he is, and he's like basically pulling himself along, and because there's no gravity, he's kind of like flying right through this thing. And as he comes up to the engine room, you see Justin like kind of pop out of the black or whatever it is. And they kind of like literally bump into each other, and he's like, I got you, baby bear, because the Kathleen Quinlan, she's the mama bear, right? She's the mama trying to care about, she's the doctor, the medical person. And Justin, because he's like probably the youngest of this crew, he is clearly the baby bear, right? And so it is, it's an exciting scene, in that what happened to him, and then when he comes back and he sort of has this like blank stare, and he's non-responsive. He's just sort of like, he's not dead, but he's like a coma, but his eyes are open. I don't know how you describe it. He's in shock, something. He's just
that's what it seems like.
I think the thing is, if he could talk, he would say, Justin isn't here right now, just leave a message, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I mean, he's checked out.
Yes, absolutely. And we're not expecting him to have anything to say. He's just, it definitely looks like if he does wake up, he may not remember anything. He may not have anything to add to any of this. So it doesn't even really matter. Even if he does wake up, what could he possibly impart to everybody that they would believe too? Like, what did he see? He said that he saw a liquid wall and that's what pulled him in, but is everybody else going to feel the same way? Will they be like, oh, well, there's no way that happened? Because Cooper goes back and is like, I saw this, and they're like, okay, you were having a delusion. And he's like, I was not having a delusion. So that starts like all of this tension on board between all of the people and Weir, because Weir's like, there's no way that happened. Like, you did not see that. That's impossible. And Cooper's like, you weren't there. You don't know. It happened. Like, and he's getting really angry about it. So it's a really tense scene. But yeah, my number 4 there was just Justin. No.
Yeah. And
so he's
it's funny because you're like, oh, that guy, he really's got it bad. Oh no, just wait.
Yeah. And it's like, while they're doing this, they're trying to, there's, like I said, everybody's got a job, so they're all sort of doing different things here and there, and like Stark is on the bridge talking them through the rescue and whatever. Meanwhile, like, Smitty is working on restoring gravity. So they're restoring all these systems and things like that to the Event Horizon so that they can, salvage it, figure out what happened to it, maybe plug into their devices and, check out whatever.
And just make it so they don't have to wear their spacesuits, that they can operate in just their uniforms, so they turn the heaters back on, and
and there's lights, and they've got like a visual from the outside as all the lights turn on. They get the gravity fixed, and as soon as they get the gravity fixed, the body that was sort of floating around in the bridge with Parks is just like, and it hits the ground, and I just thought that was amazing, like the visual, because it's all these different like chunks of ice, and then there's like one little hand that just like is like frozen, so it like hits the ground and like sort of rolls back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
It's kind of almost like porcelain, right? It's and I believe what's her name? Peters, when she first bumps into the body, she refers to it as a corpsicle because it's frozen, because it's so cold on the ship. Yeah. And so, when it turns back on, that is a real fun scene, because that body is, I was always wondering, they again, one of the things that's kind of frustrating is they never make any attempt to figure out, well, who was that? Was that the captain of the ship? Was that just another? Doesn't matter, because again, he turns into like 9,000 little pieces there in a minute. But they never ever look at like, well, or even wonder, well, why was like that the only body that they found?
Whereas everything else is a big pile of soup in the corner.
But
which we mentioned at length.
But it's puzzling where it's like, why there's not a lot of answers, as you said, in this movie, but they don't even ask that question, and that seems to me to be that's one of the reasons why this movie kind of is a mess at parts, because you're like watching it and you're like, well, who was that guy? Why did he not turn into goo like everybody else? That maybe that's significant, maybe, they're just like, nope, we're good, let's go.
Yeah. That's the end of that. We got nothing else to talk about here.
Yes.
Okay, bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye now. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So we get this great defrost moment when everything, like when that body smashes, and then you and I, like, our next points, it's my number 6, your number 5.
Mm-hmm.
We both had the same moment. They get Justin back. They put him into, like, the sick bay. We like we said, he's just there. It's his eyes, like, and his eyes kind of look black.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, there's no color left in him, and he's alive, but he's not.
He's unresponsive. He just is lying there with his eyes open, staring. He doesn't,
Correct.
no stimulus at all will get him to react. Yeah.
Go ahead.
And I was just saying, we should point out too that when he does come out of the blackness, this like big like wave of gravity or power or energy comes out with him and completely forks up the Lewis and Clark, where it's so badly damaged. The only option they have is to go on board the Event Horizon, because it's like literally like minutes away from exploding and uninhabitable. So again, they're sort of, in ratcheting up the tension and the stakes here, and that now the one ship that they know works doesn't work anymore, and they have no radio, they have no way to contact anyone, so they can't call for help, and now everybody has to, like, basically go into the haunted house, because the car outside is no longer habitable for them to stay in, right? And so now, like you said, everyone kind of has a job to do, and so Peters and CJ are kind of looking after Justin, and Smitty and Cooper are like trying to repair the Lewis and Clark, so they're like out there dealing with that, and then everyone else is on board the Event Horizon trying to figure out what happened. Yeah. And so from there we get like this is one of my favorite scenes of the whole movie. So yeah, it's I think it's really scary, and it's creepy, and it's effective.
It's very like classic horror in a lot of ways too. It's very like, it's making you think things that aren't there, and it's all of it, from the noise, the sound, the images, everything. You're like, it's playing with your mind. But so Peter's working on Justin. She's there kind of like in sickbay doing stuff. It's Peters, right? I feel like I said Parks earlier.
Kathleen Quinlan is Peters. That's her
Peters.
name.
Yep. Yeah. I'm gonna write it down, because otherwise that's again because of my brain.
Well, and I think you get Parks because Jolie Richardson, which is the blonde, the XO, the other woman, she's Stark.
Sparks.
Is her name?
Stark.
Yeah. No, Stark with a T.
Stark. Sorry.
Yeah.
And so so Peters, Kathleen Quinlan, is in sickbay. She's caring for Justin. She's doing other things. And while she's there, there's this really quiet, like, it sounds like, it says in the closed captioning, but it's obvious. It sounds like fabric, like someone touching like some kind of fabric or rubbing a piece of fabric. And she looks around, and there's nobody there with her, and Justin is catatonic, and he's on the table. There's nothing happening. And she keeps trying to work, and it happens a couple more times. And she ends up walking around, and then there's a table there in the sick bay, like a table to work off of, and it has like a tent over it.
Mm-hmm.
And inside the tent there's a little bit of light, and you can see a hand, and the hand is like rubbing along the edge. Oh. Now, she's literally just sort of walked past Justin, or he's in the frame. So they do a good job of making it seem like this is not Justin that's in there.
Right.
This is something else, so that you in your brain know that there's a reason to be on edge. So it's very creepy. She unzips it, and it's her son, and his legs are like all like beat up, and have all this like flesh
sores
like,
and
and there's already been like an establishing moment, or whether it's I can't remember if it's something visual or they just talk about it. She's got some kind of trauma with her son, whether he is ill at home in on Earth, and something like that. There's something going on with him because he's brought up at some point when they were talking about how they had to like turn right around and go right back out again. And she's like, "Oh, it's no big deal. He'll be with his father, and whatever."
Her ex will get him now, and she'll get him later. Yeah, this is a point that I don't understand, and so I wanted to ask you for your view of it. In that, we get 3 people on this crew that actually like the ship like affects. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Which, first of all, that's weird to me. Why doesn't everybody see weird things? But it's just the 3 of them. And Weir sees his dead wife. And I should point out she's always naked and smoking hot and eyeballess. And Miller sees this guy that died in this like fire in a previous mission on a different ship when he was younger. Okay. And it's one of these things where like the guy was like, don't leave without me. Don't save me. And he like, Miller had to like leave him behind because otherwise everybody else would have died. It's one of those kind of like, Sophie's,
make a choice.
Yeah, but he's haunted by it. Okay. Yet Peters is seeing her son, who we already know is still alive. Okay. And he's not dead. And okay, so clearly there's something with him. He has some kind of disability, because we do see some video she's watching of like his birthday party that had previously happened, and she's pushing the son around, obviously in some kind of a wheelchair, right? So there he has something with him. Something's the matter with him, whether it's he was born with it or whatever. But why is this so traumatic for her, other than it's her child, which I totally get? But I mean, she's really, this is like her button, right? And it's almost like, well, did something happen? Was like maybe there was an accident that got him in the chair that she feels guilty about? I don't get it. I don't understand why this, because at the end of the movie, when she is, loaded up all the scrubbers, and it literally, they're like, we have 3 minutes or we're all dead. We have to leave. And when she sees him running back in the engine room, she literally drops everything and goes after him. Right. So, this is clearly a huge deal to her, and I don't get it. And it's what do you think about that? Why is this such a button for her?
I think it's because of her being out in space for extended periods of time. I think it's a guilt thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think she's not there when he's in pain, as it were. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I interpreted it, is that, she's out in space and she's either not there to care for him or something like that. That's how I felt. So I don't know. I don't know if that's right, but that's the only thing. It made sense to me that way.
And that does fit in, because clearly the other 2, it's guilt. Miller feels responsible for that guy's death, even though if you look at it analytically, the way he describes what happens, he didn't have a choice. That was the choice he made was the right one, that he saved as many people as he could. And clearly I don't think Weir loves his wife so much as he feels totally responsible that she's dead.
Yes.
Because we find out that like the reason she kills herself is that he is never home, because he's building the Event Horizon. And this has taken over his life, and she, her response to just basically being by herself, not like find a good book to read, not like find some good shows on Netflix to watch and binge. No, she's just going to slit her wrists, but he's not, I'm sure he loves her somewhat, but I think it's much more, I feel bad that basically she killed herself because I couldn't be bothered to come home enough, and so that fits right in with the Peters character, that maybe it's just she really feels like as a mother she should take care of her child, and she's never there. That's a good. I never really considered that. I always thought, man, this 30 minutes of hacked out footage, maybe we would have found out something happened in her past with her child that she feels responsible for what happened to him or why he is like he is
Yeah.
or something. But yeah, that scene in the medical room
Mm.
with the hand on the tent, what the sound is great, and I love that she initially thinks that it's DJ, and she like calls out, and then he doesn't answer, and then she hears the sound again, and then
Hmm.
super smart, what does she do? She gets on the intercom and goes, "Hey DJ, where are you?" And he immediately is like, "Oh, I'm over on deck 4 or something, right? Somewhere else, not there, which
Yeah.
which again, red flag, right? Because
Yeah.
this is a thing where it's like, okay, everybody knows there's like 5 people on the ship total. And if no one else that you know of is on the ship, is in the room with you, and you hear someone in the room with you, that's a problem,
Yeah. No
and
kidding.
and then she gets up and she goes over, and this, I love this part that you see the hand scraping, and then as she gets closer, the hand pulls back and vanishes, you can't see it through the fabric. I thought that was wonderfully done, and it's creepy and it's eerie, and as an audience you're like, don't look underneath there. What are you, nuts? Have you ever seen a horror movie? No, don't. But
Yeah.
she's got to, right? And yeah, and then boom, she flips it over, and there he is, and he looks, his legs are all gnarly and gross, and yeah, it's that is one of 2 great creep out moments in this movie, both of them involving her, by the way, which I think is an interesting choice, which is why
Yeah.
I asked you about the main character, because in many ways she is the main character, but she is definitely not the main character.
Yeah. I think that's the case. Like, it almost gets shared by a bunch of people.
Mm-hmm.
Like shared trauma.
Ooh. Eep.
Yeah. So the next couple of points, like, chronologically are yours, and then we sort of meet up again. So let's talk through your number 6 and your number 7.
Okay, yeah.
Your Weir scene and then your Peter scene.
Yeah, well, the Weir scene, I like it, but it's goofy. This is Hollywood writers, that they're like, something happens, like the ship starts losing power, and they kind of think that, well, the gravity drive might be draining power from the rest of the ship. So Weir and Miller go racing down the corridor to the engineering section, and they get into the room, with the big ball and the spinny rings and everything. And there's like, oh, there might be a short in one of the fuses or something, and he literally like opens a section of the wall and like crawls into, I mean, it's like straight out of Die Hard. He's like in this massive air shaft, and it's like emerald green in color, and
It looks like he's inside the Matrix.
it really
You know what I
does.
mean?
Yes, and it's glowing and all this stuff, and I mean, and he like, it's a maze. He's like crawling down corridors and turning and going left and right and left, and then finally he comes up to this one little panel, and he opens it up, and he takes this circuit that, I mean, it's like smaller than like a match, like a stamp.
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
Yeah.
and I the whole time I'm like, really? That's where you're going to put those circuits, in that maze of a thing where you have to go do all that work to fix it? Really? And there's no way. And why is it green? I mean, it is clearly a writer just like having fun. And I just go back to the oh man, what's the name of the movie with Tim Allen, with the space movie, Galaxy Quest, where he and Sigourney Weaver are running, and they come up to the as Justin Long says, the chompers, and it's like the big stompy like pistons that they have to like time to move through it. And Sigourney Weaver is like, who wrote this? And it's just it's kind of like that. But when he's in there and he's looking around, of course, like all the green lights in the corridor, the air shaft all go off, and he's in the dark, and then he starts hearing his wife's voice, right? And so it's like, okay, this is not good. And I wrote down the line, because he is yelling for Miller, for Larry Fishburne's character, who does not go into the air shaft. He's still out in the main room, and he's like, Miller, Captain Miller, I've got some problems here.
Of my own making.
Yeah. And of course, she eventually shows up, and I think she like appears in front of him for a second, and then boom, she's behind him, right behind him. And, she literally says, stay with me or something cryptic like that. And again, her eyes are usually closed, but this might be one of the times when she opens them and we can see that, there are no eyeballs. She is, just has the open sockets. And then as quickly as it happens, boom, it's gone and it's over. And Miller doesn't answer him. And then once the episode ends, suddenly Miller's like, "Hey, are you okay in there?" And it's almost like, did it really happen, or did he imagine it, or what was it? Did he just hallucinate it? It's unclear. But I like that moment, but I just think it's silly with the green air shaft thing. It's just like, no engineer would ever build that like that ever.
I can't remember. Is there ever any explanation for what it is he pulls out? I don't remember. I don't think so.
No, and he just is theorizing. He doesn't know that's what's wrong. That's just what he thinks is happening. The only thing they know is that, like, all the lights on the front of the ship and the systems are going down because they're losing power. And he's just like, maybe the gravity drive is draining away power, so they race down. And like a lot of things in this movie, once that is over, they never go back to it. They never mention it again. So it's like, well, I guess that problem has been solved. And he doesn't really fix what he takes out or replace it with a new one. He just takes out that little thing. And after he takes it out, that's when the dead wife starts showing up. So he never really gets a chance to fix it. So, yeah. So that was one of my points. And again, I just think it's a fun moment. And then the next one, and this again, it's a moment with Peters, and it's a simple movie gag to do, but I love it. It is so great. Its simplicity makes it creepy and scary, and that their things have progressed a little bit, and they're kind of repairing the ship, and they're excited about getting out of there. And they do set up, there is kind of a time limit going on, because the air on board the Event Horizon has a lot of carbon dioxide in it. And like the scrubbers that normally clear that out don't work. And so they've like taken all of the scrubbers from the Lewis and Clark and put them in the Event Horizon. So it's good for them that NASA apparently didn't change the specs on those in 7 years, that they'll fit, but they do.
Well, it's great because the fact that they are sort of like universal is very great, because anyone who sat through
Apollo 13,
where they had to make their own because the one on one thing is square and the other one is a triangle, and they couldn't figure it. They had to like something.
They used like the space suit and all the duct tape and the sock and the bags. I mean, so here they're just these tubes that they can stick in them, but.
Yeah.
But after they do that, they basically have like 20 hours of breathable air, and then the Lewis and Clark, which we should point out is way smaller of a ship than the Event Horizon. It's teeny, it's very, very small.
Oh yeah.
And after 20 hours, the air will go back to being toxic. So they literally have to be off the Event Horizon in 20 hours. And so time's running out. They're getting close to the end, and of course, Peters has already had the weird thing with her son in the tent already, so she's already kind of on edge, and like wants to get the F out of here as quickly as possible. And so she's in sick bay in the medical, and she's keeping an eye on Justin, who's still there and still comatose. And it's this great scene, and it's a long shot, and she starts at one end of the sick bay, which has all these beds lined up in a row. And she's on one end, and she paces all the way down to the other end. And the very last bed at the other end is where Justin is. And he's lying there.
Right.
And she walks past him, and then she kind of gets to the wall, and she kind of stops, and she's hands on her hips. And clearly she's, kind of in her head and freaking out and thinking about stuff. And then she turns, and then she walks past the whole line of beds again and goes right past Justin and goes all the way to the other end. And then she stops, does the same thing for a second, then turns around, and then she walks back for the third time and goes past, and there's Justin sitting in the bed, and she gets to the end and she sits there for a second, and then she turns around, and when she comes back, she walks past Justin's bed and he's gone. And it's again, it's so easy to do, right? Because they just wait, and when the actor is out of camera, they say, all right, move, and he gets up and rolls off the bed and gets out of camera view, and then the camera comes back, and it's not a big delay where there's a cut or an edit. It's just she pauses exactly as she has paused already, and he's gone, and it's just freaky. Did you like that scene? I love that scene.
Yeah, I do. And again, I like that they've taken these like quiet moments in the sick bay with Peters and given her these very classic horror moments. And for something like that, for someone to be there and then not be there is such a classic thing to do. And it's so simple when there's all this other like major like scientific like mumbo jumbo going on outside this room. Two very straightforward scary things happen that don't involve gore and don't involve any of that, but it's all like tricks of the mind. The thing that's funny is that in that first half second when Justin's not there, she probably in her head is like, this isn't really happening, just like the tent thing. And then like she has to realize, oh shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she sort of, it's great too, because she almost walks past the bed before she realizes he's not there. And then she's like, oh crap.
Yeah, no, it's a good scene. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I liked pretty much any scene Catherine Quinlan's in. She's a great
I do
actress.
too. I always had a little I carried a little torch for her back then. I always thought she was a cutie, and usually plays real smart independent women, and I really appreciate that. So I always like Kathleen Quinlan, and I think it's really funny that after this scene, she literally has a line where she goes, "I'm not going back to medical." So she's like, like, screw that room. That room I'm never going back to again. So I thought that was kind of funny, but and I think these kind of scenes this movie needed more of. And one of my complaints about this movie is that, and this is just Paul W.S. Anderson, this is just the way he does it, it's that from the moment they walk on the ship, the ship in terms of like creepy stuff, it's on like maximum. It's at 110%, where everything is like a punch to the face with these very vivid images where you're seeing your dead son, you're seeing the guy on fire, you're seeing your hot, dead, naked wife with no eyeballs, whatever it is, it's all at maximum intensity. And I think this, for it to really make it scary and creepy, it has to be that kind of slow turning up the intensity over time where it gets worse and worse and worse, right? I mean, like at the beginning, they should just hear weird noises and hear things over the intercom that isn't them talking. And, that's weird, that's odd. But then it builds and it builds, and then the tension gets more and more heavier. And you know what I mean? That's what I think this movie needed more of, it, rather than it's just going at 110 from the moment you get on the ship. But that's me. That's just my thing. But yeah, this scene and the tent
those
scene
scenes are, yeah. And those scenes, they're so much, they're much more effective because you don't have to manufacture that feeling. Everybody's had a moment where you're like, you're in your house and you're like, did I just hear something?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So you are immediately Peters in that moment. You're like, oh, did I just hear? Or, was something there and then it's gone, and mysteriously. Usually it's your phone. And usually it's because it's actually still in your hand, but whatever. I digress.
You know what? Old age creeps up on all of us. But
I know. You should know.
I should, and I think all of us can relate. We've all had that moment where you're in one room in your house, and you get up and you walk into another room, and as soon as you get into the new room, you think to yourself, "Why did I come in here?"
Why am I here?
And you just don't know, right? Very similar. Very similar.
Yeah. My thing I do a lot now, not to digress, but my thing I do all the time, it's not going into another room. It's when I'm scrolling on the phone, I'll see something and go, oh, that reminds me, I should go look up XYZ because of whatever reason, whatever it is. I go look that up on a news site. I want to see what happened with that thing. It reminds me. And then I don't do it right away. I scroll for like another 3 seconds, and it's gone.
Yes,
from my head.
yes.
And I'm like, what? And then it's like you go and you're like, what was I gonna do? And I literally have to scroll back, find the thing that triggered my brain to think that way, and go,
oh yeah,
I wanted to do
all the time.
With the things that escape my brain within 3 seconds of thinking them. They get scary sometimes.
And just based on this movie, just remember it's all ghosts.
Right, it's absolutely ghosts.
Ghosts.
That's why everything functions with a list. Yeah. If it's not on the shopping list, it doesn't.
It's not going to happen, right? It's not reality otherwise. Yeah, I totally get it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I have to do that. I have to function from a list. Okay, great. So now, DJ, who is the Jason Isaacs character, has said from the minute that they heard the distress signal, the thing that, the distress signal that came out from the Event Horizon, that's what triggered this whole search and rescue to begin with. He's said a couple of times, let me, I'll run some filters through it. I'll try and see what else I can get from this. And right at the same, right around the time when they're also, Peters has decided to go through, she found like a digital, like a diary, like a captain's log. Yeah, which is pretty official, but it's, it's the future. So this is a digital, video.
It's on a compact disc because it's the future.
It is, because nothing says the future quite like a compact disc. The kids these days are like,
what is that?
Huh?
Yeah. Why did she get a coaster out of that machine?
Yeah, why? So DJ has said, I'm gonna clean this up. I'm gonna scrub it up and try and figure out like what else is being said here, because there's more being said on this, but can't quite figure out what it is. So right around the same time, we get both of those things. DJ plays it, and there's more to it, and then we see the visuals that go along with it. And he figures out that it's not just that whoever it is that's on the message, they say liberate me, but he's like, actually what they're saying is liberate tu me, and he's like, and I love your line that you included there. He says, and it gets worse.
And it gets worse, yeah.
Yeah. Tutume isn't save me, it's save yourself. And then he says, and it gets worse. I think that he says ex infernus, which is save yourself from hell.
From hell,
you're like,
yes.
Oh my God. Liberate, tutume ex infernus, save yourself from hell. Yeah. And I like that they did it in Latin because it's, I wouldn't say it's universal, but it's you don't know, is there going to be a salvage mission that's going to come out and it's going to be filled with people from Russia, from China, from somewhere else where they don't speak English, but Latin is a recognizable. It's not, people, not everyone understands it, but I guess it's more because it's the language of science. They use Latin in a lot of scientific areas.
Sure.
If there's scientists that are coming out, they may know some Latin, even if they don't know English or another language. So the use of that, it's almost very scientific of him to have used Latin. So your next point and mine is both the same, where it's, DJ saying it's not just this, it's this.
It's actually worse than you think.
And by the way, it's even worse because I think it's really this.
Yeah. I always kind of thought of it as Latin is kind of like a Gothic language, and when you get into like Dante's Inferno and all of these kind of old world depictions of hell, that,
Mm-hmm.
the things that were, look at the like the Spanish Inquisition and all the ways that they tortured and, murdered people and all that. It's all very bloody, very similar to kind of like what we see when we finally see that video log of what the crew, happens to them, in montage form.
Mm.
Um, and so Latin makes sense because, it almost looks like something you would see in like an old woodcut from like the 1300s or something, and
Yeah.
some sort of depiction of hell or something. Um, I love it this because this is I see this as it's a little nod to the original Alien. In that in the original Alien, they pick up the transmission and it causes them to divert to the planet right where the alien derelict ship is. And at first, they think it's a distress call. It's a call for help, right? Because it's an acoustical beacon. It repeats in like every 10 seconds,
Right.
which is very emergency beacon kind of a thing from their thinking. And then once they get there, Sigourney Weaver, who has nothing to do, she puts the transmission through the computer and lets it start chewing on it. And, after a while, she, goes, oh, wait, you know what? This looks like it's a warning, and that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what happens here, right? At first they think it's save me, rescue me, come help me, which maybe gives them the idea that maybe there are survivors, maybe there are people there that need her help. That's maybe one of the reasons why this mission was sent out so quickly, right? And
Mm.
then we find out, well, actually no, it doesn't say that. It says whatever you do in God's name, don't come here.
Yeah.
For your own sake. And so I like that. Although I gotta say this, just from a logic standpoint, this drives me mad that I'm sorry, you're gonna tell me that NASA or the USAC or whatever the governing body is that controls all these ships, they are able to strip down this transmission and hear that there are human words being spoken, which is what they say, but
Right.
yet there is nobody on Earth. There's no computer that they can feed this into that can listen to that and go, I think it's Latin. I mean, it's like, come on. It's like, they of course would have been able to figure that out. And keep in mind, DJ, he is across the room and hears it one time and is like, well, I think it's Latin. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, come on.
Right.
So that I just roll my eyes at that part at the beginning where I'm like, really? Nobody on Earth could have decoded that until now? Okay. But still, it's a great moment, right? And I think what I think sells it even more is that DJ, we know from the beginning, he is an agnostic. He doesn't believe in any of this stuff. He, is definitely a science first, here and now person.
Mm-hmm.
And Miller, up to this point, because Miller's seen the burning guy a couple of times now, he is now drinking the Kool-Aid and believes that there's, definitely, I don't know if he would be considered superstitious at this point, but he is definitely stitious right
He's
now.
at least a little stitious.
Yes, right. And so when DJ tells him the whole thing about the save yourself from hell, then Miller goes, do you believe in that kind of thing? And I love it because DJ goes, whoever said those words sure believes in hell. And I thought that was really powerful. And clearly at that point, Miller is like, I think the mission is pretty much over. Let's all get on board the Lewis and Clark and get the F out of here. So
Yeah.
but
And if only they'd listened.
if only, well, if they didn't bring a bomb on board too, that
Yeah,
would have
that's-
helped. So
Yeah, I mean, they didn't bring a bomb. Someone else brought a bomb on
Yes,
board. But that's, neither here nor there.
yeah. Well, yeah, and this is the point where is like in full Jack Torrance mode because, any thought of leaving the event horizon is like, what, are you crazy? We can't do that. We have a contract, right? I mean, it's not quite the same speech, but it's the same tone and approach of, oh no, we can't go. We got to stay. We have orders. This is where we belong, and
Right.
and of course, Miller's like, nope, we're leaving, pack up your crap and get back to the ship. And of course, he takes that to mean go take one of the explosive charges from the long access tunnel and sneak it on board the ship and blow it up. And so he does, and that kills Smitty.
Yep.
He dies, and then Cooper, who is out like on the wing of the ship, still trying to like finish up repairs. I mean, in real life, he would be dead too. There's no way he would have survived that explosion. I mean, that shockwave killed him. And a minimum shockwave would have ruptured his suit and he would have died in space. But anyway, he just kind of gets blown away and is drifting away from the ship and then finds a way to come back so he can show up at the end. But they're gone, and you basically have DJ, you have Miller, and you have Stark and Weir. Those are people. And at this point, Peters has died too, because she follows her follows her ghost son and falls down an open hatchway and falls like 100 feet to her death and dies. She smacks into the ground and dies, right? So
yeah, and it doesn't help too that she falls into like the pointy.
Yes.
She's in like the chamber where the gravity drive is. So yeah. It's Ugh.
Yeah, it's a thing that I refer to as the Hellraiser room.
Yes.
Just for, I mean, like the big ball and the big spinny rings. It's like clearly this is like Pinhead's like personal collection stuff, right?
Yeah.
So she's gone. So it's just those people left, and so Miller gets on the intercom and talks to DJ and says, Weir just blew up the Lewis and Clark. So if you see him, kill him, take him out, and Miller picks up this, like, I don't know, like a bone saw or some medical like autopsy instrument that they have like in copious amounts on board the Event Horizon. And
which is interesting when you think, should we have multiple bone saws?
Yes.
On a ship that does, salvage missions.
Yeah, it's just like, why? Why do we have
call for that?
Yeah, how many autopsies are we planning on performing, sir? But he does, and then of course, Weir shows up behind him, and his, hasn't he poked his eyes out at that point, and he's all looking all beat up and got the blood and the cuts on his face, and
I think so, yeah.
He throws DJ around like a rag doll and eventually puts him on one of the operating tables, and he rips open his shirt and then like literally like eviscerates him with one of those tools, and so when Miller eventually gets to the sick bay, to the medical area, he finds DJ, and I mean, like, this death is straight out of Hellraiser. Right. There, and this is one of the, like, my honorable mentions, but one of the things that I don't know if it's considered a rumor, if it's true, but there's a lot of talk that Clive Barker consulted on this movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so that's
you can
why
see it.
you certainly can, and that's why, like, the gravity drive room looks like it kind of looks like the puzzle box in many ways, right? It has the weird patterns and everything on it, and clearly DJ's death is if he didn't suggest it, the writer clearly was inspired by Hellraiser when he did it, because he's been like, imagine like they cracked his chest open and cut open off his rib cage, and then Weir like takes these big metal hooks into the flesh of his chest and has attached wires to them and suspended him from like the ceiling of the medical bay with him facing downwards, and so like all of his internal organs have fallen out of his chest cavity onto like the table. I mean, it's grody. There's no doubt it's grody.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things that the test audiences did not like, because apparently in the original version it's much more graphic, and you see a lot more of it. In this version, it's really very quick shots and more of, what you kind of like get the idea, but it kind of lets your imagination kind of fill in the details. So, but yeah, that was DJ's death is very Hellraiser-y, because I mean, it's, straight out of there.
Absolutely. I made a note in my honorable mentions too about there being there's moments, between the gravity drive, the design of it, and then they, without question, the body modifications with even the stuff
with
Sam
Neill
does, that's very Hellraiser. But definitely how DJ is suspended, without question. I was just like, oh, typing it out. I'm like, Hellraiser. So yeah, but it's done really well. It's a good, like, it's not, it doesn't feel like this movie is stealing. It's feeling like it's more homage. It's more inspiration, as it were. I enjoy that. It's nice to have that stuff happen, and you're like, oh, that's clearly inspired by this and this. So yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah,
obviously
absolutely.
now it's down to pretty much Miller versus Weir is like the
Yes.
final battle, the final monster, if you were. And they have this they end up in this final moment where they're in the bridge, and and Weir is sitting in the captain's chair, and they have this whole moment where they sort of fight it out. One of the things is they showed you earlier when Cooper was fixing the outside of the hull of the spacecraft, that they've got this sort of like air nailer that sends like bolts, so that you can it's like a pneumatic air thing, but it's more like a bolt. But to pierce through, the tip is like an arrow, and then it pierces through and then creates a bolt, which then like rivets, yada yada, does its thing. But they've
I really thought of it as a rivet gun. That was kind of my view of it. But it's like used to like fix the ship. It's not like a gun. But he's like, I'm going to use it as a gun.
So he has one. It gets knocked away from him, but then, in their sort of scuffle. But Weir has one, and he takes it out, and he's about to shoot Miller, but Cooper shows up at the window because he's able to, he like flew back or whatever. He did the he did the Andy Weir Martian thing where he didn't poke a hole, but he releases his oxygen and it propels him, and he goes and yada yada. And he's up at the window, and now Weir just goes by the sound of the voice because now he has no eyes. But he turns, and Cooper's at the window, and he shoots the rivet gun, and it goes through the glass and hits Cooper, but it blows out the glass, and I'm like, that was kind of stupid. So there's this whole really scary moment where they get pulled out, and what's his face survives. Miller survives, and so does in that sort of fight. Stark was also sort of like tossed aside as part of the fight, and but Miller is able to sort of get rid of, I don't leave someone behind, because they, the pressure, because the pressurization is happening, it's depressurized in the bridge. There's like a door that's like slowly closing. And he propped it open, and she's like, I can't get to you. And he's like, no, you do it, so he pulls her in. Miller and Stark are saved for the moment. And it's almost like that moment had to happen because Miller needed to get rid of, this ghost, this monkey that's on his back. And then I can't remember what was the reasoning for, they're gonna get rid of that sort of walkway that's in between the gravity drive and the ship, like the forward portion of the ship, and then take that and leave. So they're planning everything out, and they're like, do this, like, we got to get prepped and ready to go. And you do this, and then Miller goes off to the hallway, which leads to the room, and he's getting all of the bombs armed so that they can just blast away. And the gravity thing wakes up, and you're like, don't go in there. And they've done a good job so far in the movie of making it seem like they keep showing, like, when it starts to spin, it's like this gyroscope, there's lights on it, and it's very mesmerizing. And they always like show when someone gets sort of like mesmerized by it, they bring the camera in and you see the reflection of it on their eyeball and it's sort of spinning in their eye and you have this whole feeling of like, oh God, they're entranced, you know, they can't help themselves. And he kind of has that moment and ends up in the gravity room. And at first he ends up in this battle with what he thinks is his the guy that he left behind that was on fire. I forget if they ever gave his name, but
they do. What was it? It was they do. His name is Cordic or something like that. But in the credits, he's just listed as Burning Man. But which I always thought was a music festival. But what do I know?
But what do I know? So they end up in this battle, this fight, and he's just like, and you know, Miller's in this place. I saved Stark. I'm good now, and he's like, you're not really here. So he's like, this isn't you. Who is that? And you know, is there something on? And the skin peels away, and there's Weir.
Yep, the ship brought him back and gave him his eyes back too.
Yeah, clearly. So then they have this fantastic knockdown, drag out fight. It's really wonderful, and it becomes clear that he's not going to be able to get away, and that the best way because it turns out Cooper shows up as well. It looks like he's dead and gone, but he shows back up, and he's just like sort of slightly injured from the bolt. It didn't make it like all the way through his stuff, his gear he was wearing. You know, he's got like 10 layers on because he was outside. So he's okay. He's not dead. And he and Stark are watching while, you know, Miller's like doing this battle or whatever, like, and then finally Miller gives up and he has the button and he lets it go. So that that's the ending, of the whole thing. And there's a couple of moments that led up to that, and I can't remember when he says this, but at some point in one of those two confrontations when he's with Miller, you know, Miller sees him without the eyes, because it's not just that he doesn't have eyes, it's that he's also sewn his eyes shut as well.
Like you do.
It's very jarring, that look, and I'll never forget seeing that when his face is first revealed on the screen, and it was on like a big movie screen. It was very jarring to see that, and very well done. But he's immediately, what happened to your eyes? And his return response, I wrote down because I loved it. He says, where we're going, you won't need eyes to see. And he's already made all of these pronouncements about going to hell and all of that. And there's this really great moment. I think it might have been when they were in the gravity room, in the gravity drive room, because right after that, isn't that when he touches his head and shows him like what will happen? Or that's when he's talking about the crew, like the crew isn't alive or whatever, and he shows all these images of them being tortured and being in pain and what have you, all these images of kind of hell. But anyway, so I liked that line where he says, where we're going, you won't need eyes to see. And I'm like, that doesn't sound good.
That's never good.
But then, totally contradicting himself in their sort of final boss battle that they have, you know, all they needed was some really good, like, electronica music playing behind it. And so they're having their sort of final battle, and Weir has this moment where he just is, you know, he gives them these visions in his head of what's going on, you know, that like his crew is suffering and whatever. And he says, and he's like, do you see? But Miller isn't taken in by it, and he sees the remote control for the bombs, and he's like, I see. And when he hits those, that's the boom and the end of Weir, as it were. and Miller sacrifices himself. But when it happens, like as the bombs go, it's like in succession, and the front portion of the ship is able to sort of drive away because of it. And they're watching the whole thing, and they know that Miller sacrificed himself, but they're like, peace out. We're out of here. This craziness that we just experienced. So those were my last 2 points, were those great moments of Weir's almost kind of final words. Do you see?
Do you see? Yeah. Well, and then I like too when he tells Miller, he's like, you keep asking me where the ship went. We're gonna find out. We're going there. And I think when he blows up the corridor, that kind of it sets up. I hate to say a sequel, but certainly you could have the engineering section of the Event Horizon return, and Sam Neill and Larry Fishburne are still alive, so they could definitely reprise their roles. What how did they come back? What did they experience there? Yeah. But that it does kind of devolve into just an action movie at the end, without a doubt. It loses a little of its horror, and it's much more of how much both those guys wail on the other, because they kind of take turns, until finally Sam Neill gets the upper hand and is monologuing a little bit, and that's when Miller grabs the detonator and is able to be like, yeah, see this, and hits the button, right, and sends them off on their way. But yeah, I do like that moment too, that he literally tells him, do you see? So it's like it's a great kind of movie moment, where with the setup, because the engine room is, I think it's on fire, like you said, and it's this incredible visual, and you have Sam Neill just ranting and raving, and I really like that sequence. That was fun.
Yeah. And then your final point there was
it's just a question, which is is this a happy ending? Is this a horror ending? Is this a confused ending? What do you think? I want your opinion.
I'm curious. Like, I don't know how I feel about it being a happy ending. Mm-hmm. One of the things that happened was they were able to send off a distress signal of some kind, some sort of automated distress signal. So in theory, they could be picked up out in space. They set a course and then might be intercepted by somebody. But I don't know. Like, I think it would have played a little bit better if we just had them going into stasis and then that's the end. Mm-hmm. But maybe that's just because that's what I'm used to with Alien.
Right.
But they went through the whole thing where, Stark has the moment, kind of like Weir, where she has the, the freak out moment, and then they take her out of the stasis, and there's people there that are, because she has the image of someone saving her, and it's really weird, and she freaks out. But then there really are people there that are saving her, and she's just like, we don't know.
Yeah, yet. I mean, my thought is, you get the one last scare, right, where she, right. They get out, take her out of the stasis, and of course the rescue guy's got the helmet that you can't see his face, and he's literally like, we gotcha, don't worry, we gotcha, and then the mask flips up, and it's eyes shut Sam Neill, and then she's like, and then she kind of wakes up, and she's like freaking out after being taken out of the stasis pod, and Cooper's there going, it's okay, and then there's a rescue guy there, and he's like, we need a sedative in here now, and he's yelling, and then the camera kind of pulls away from it, and then the door of the Event Horizon closes on them. And then the movie ends, right? And so that was my question. Like, okay, are we supposed to believe that, like, the ship literally is not going to let them go? And even though these new guys came on board there, the ship, the doors closed, and it won't, they're forever trapped there. They're in their own hell. or
Mm.
did the
I don't know.
hatch just close and it's, yeah, she's gonna calm down and they made it and it's okay. I don't know. I can't tell. I mean, that this is one of the confusing things in this movie. That's why I really wanted to know what was when you saw it. Were you thinking, oh yeah, they're screwed, or were you like, oh wow, okay, they got away?
I feel like they got away, but I think that in and of itself creates another loop because she's gonna go back. They're both gonna describe this situation that
Hmm.
happened. They're not gonna be believed. People are gonna go back out there to try and do a salvage again because there's going to be like rumor and conjecture, like say 20 years from now they'll go back out again, and it'll just be continue perpetuating, I think.
Okay.
If there's anything
Yeah.
left of the like gravity drive, that
Hmm.
is. But I just, it feels like it could kind of set up a universe where this like happens again to other
Yeah.
people, not necessarily to them though.
Well, yeah, very well the Event Horizon could become like the Flying Dutchman, that is this ghost ship that is seen recurringly, by different
Mm.
people in different parts of the world and at different times. You know what I mean? It's over the years, over 100 years, it was cited a lot, that type of thing, and it could be that kind of a ghost ship kind of thing. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. But I was okay with it. I I struggle with like the fact that they were rescued. Like, you know, I like a darker ending, but we've been covering a lot of dark things lately. So
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, something that has a little bit. And the thing is that she clearly is going to have some PTSD
Mm.
issues. So they're saved, but mentally, are they really? Well, she's going to always wake up to the vision of Weir trying to help her.
Oh
And it's
yeah.
she's going to get that image in her head so they're saved physically, like in the fact that they didn't die, but are they really saved?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they're going to live with this trauma for the rest of their lives. So who knows? It's like a happy ending, but with like a lot of darkness added to it.
It's like happy ending question mark.
Question mark.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it literally when the doors closed, they could have put the graphic up saying the end and then have a pause and then put the question mark
Question.
after it and it would have
Yeah.
worked, where you're like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So that's like all of our points that we covered. My only honorable mention I had, we already talked about it, was the nods to Hellraiser. We talked a little bit about some of your honorable mention stuff, but I think you probably want to expand on it a little bit. I bet.
Yeah, just a little bit, and like we said, the original cut of the movie that Paul Anderson delivered, it was 130 minutes long, which is
Mm.
2 hours and 10 minutes. That's a long movie, all right. And that's a long time to watch a good movie, okay.
Yes.
Um, and they, the story goes that they did what a lot of the studios, did back then and still do today, in that they they'll do test screenings where it'll be like they'll put a notice out saying, hey, we're screening a new movie. They won't tell you what it is. They just give you the time and the date, and that way, they'll get what they hope is a kind of a wider selection of the movie going audience,
Mm.
and probably a more truthful and faithful reaction from what the majority of the people are going to think of the movie. Because, if you say, hey, we got a horror movie coming, all the people that love horror movies are like, ooh, I want to go see that. And they're most likely going to be more positive because they already like horror movies. And so they keep it a secret. Well, they did that. And the test screenings came back, and there was a lot of comments that people were very grossed out by the movie. That it was very much more violent, much more on screen, gore and blood, and specifically when they finally decode the captain's log and you get this like 10, I don't know, maybe 5-6 seconds of like the crew, and you see the captain and he's like, I want to say thank you to my amazing crew. We're going to now jump to Proxima Centauri, and then he hits the button, and then immediately they're like literally in hell, right? And
Right.
there's all the wailing and the screaming, and you see people and they're covered in blood, and like it looks like people are being raped, and like there's a scene where someone had like someone's entire hand in their mouth, and
Yeah.
I mean it's quick cuts, right? It's very quick, but it definitely sells the idea that wow, that was awful, whatever happened to them, and
Yeah.
I think the final shot is the captain, and he's got like eyeballs in his hands, and he's holding them up to the camera, and he says something in Latin, right? And that, but it's very fast, it's very quick, and what people have written about this footage is that the original version that was much more detailed, that sequence, and you saw a lot more of that than what we finally got, and the reactions were so bad and so negative about it that and also the MPAA was going to give the movie an NC-17 rating, which, like I said, NC-17, once it was announced, I mean, literally, if you look up the stats, just about almost a perfect track record that every movie that has come out with an NC-17 rating has bombed horribly
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
box office. It just, it did not. I don't think it did what the studios thought it was going to do. That one of the most infamous ones, obviously, is Showgirls.
Right.
Which again, interestingly enough, kind of is a cult movie nowadays.
Yes,
A lot
I
of
would
people
agree.
really like it, but again, when it came out, it bombed, as Nick DiGilio would say. But So they didn't want an NC-17 rating, so they literally the studio went in after the fact and on their own recut the movie and hacked out like 30 minutes of the movie. And a chunk of it was that scene with the original crew and what happened to them. Another part, like we talked about, is the DJ death sequence when he's eviscerated and all of his internal organs fall out onto the table or the floor as he's suspended by the Hellraiser hooks and all that stuff. That was much more graphic and detailed, and that was trimmed down to, again, much quicker. Sort of, you get like a brief look at it and let your imagination kind of do the rest, kind of thing.
Hmm.
But that's two bits. Other than that, I could find nothing in my research about stuff that was cut out.
Yeah.
Other scenes, but you know, how long could they have cut out of those two scenes? Let's say 10 minutes. Okay, which I think is a lot. I don't think it was that much. I think those scenes weren't that long. But if that's the case, that means there's 20 minutes of other stuff in this movie that got removed.
Mm.
Okay, and I think that's one of the reasons why this movie is so jarring and uneven and in many people's terms a mess, because I think big chunks of the narrative got pulled out that you remove a scene because it's too graphic, but you kind of create a future problem because then a few minutes later in your movie there's going to be a scene that you need the context of the scene you removed to get why that the new scene is happening, right? And when that first scene is gone, then you have the characters doing something and you're like, wait, why is this happening? You don't know, so I think that's a big deal,
Mm.
up to why this movie is so chaotically, the audience is kind of split on it. Although, like we said, now it has a huge cult following, and interestingly enough, the actors, to a person, all said when they were filming the movie they had no idea what the story was about. That the script was so confusing to them that they knew that it was had a lot of money and it was going to look good, that they knew that it was going to be, well made, but they had no clue what the narrative was, which I think is a bad thing.
Yeah.
For when your actors are like, yeah, I don't know, so like literally after the movie in an interview, if you were to ask Sam Neill or Jolie Richardson or Kathleen Quinlan, what's the movie about? They literally would be like, I don't know.
Mm.
So um, but anyway, the other thing I wanted to say was that, like maybe about 9-10 years ago, there were some internet rumors that came out that the original cut of the movie had been found.
Mm.
And there was a lot of excitement about, ooh, maybe they'll release it, they'll clean it up, and they'll do a special edition and a steel book or whatever, and they will give us both, so you can see the theatrical, which is the version we know and love, but you can also see the alternate, the director's cut or the original cut or whatever they were going to call it. And unfortunately, Paul Anderson himself has pretty much debunked that and said, yeah, that's not true, and that as far as he knows, the original print of the movie, which had all of everything, the 130 minutes version, they stored it in like a salt mine in Transylvania, which I guess this was a European production, that the people putting up the money were mostly companies in Europe. And salt mine, you might think that's a little weird. That's actually not. It's actually a good place to store documents and film and things, because salt mines are extremely dry. There's no humidity. Yeah. And that's usually the killer for those kind of things, that causes paper to mold and decay, and it causes film stock to go bad as well. And so anyway, it was stored there, and there was something happened, either a fire or something, and they're pretty sure that the original negative has been destroyed. And like a long time ago, like in like the early 2000s, it was destroyed. So it's the chances of them, you never say never, something could turn up, because stuff is always turning up where they like, hey, we found this.
We opened this box and found this film and couldn't know, it wasn't labeled, and we didn't know what it was. And
now we've put it on the projector, and oh, it's this. And so you never know, but I think it certainly doesn't look positive that we'll ever see the original version. And like I said at the beginning, I think the original version is better than this one, but I'm just not sure by how much.
Yeah, I think they would have to they'd have to answer some questions, and they'd have to put some more layers in there about like all the other crew members. Like, does Stark have a vision?
Right.
Cooper, Smitty, but it wasn't germane to the script. Or didn't need to be there.
Yeah, it's extra, so they cut it. And I think out of all the characters, I mean, the person I think that got cut the most is Stark, because if you watch this movie, I really think Stark, they should have named her Waldo, because a big chunk of the movie, you're like, where is she? Because she disappears through a lot of the movie, almost to the point at the end where you see her again, you're like, oh yeah, she's in the movie, because she's been gone for so long, and it's like, there's only so many places she can be on the ship, so where is she? So I really think that some of, or maybe even a majority of the excised footage from this movie involved her character, because she does a disappearing act through a lot of it. And but you're right, like I pointed out, why is it that only 3 of the crew members are seeing things? What about everybody else? Because they're all on, they're right there too. So maybe that was what was cut out. And again, I can see someone that goes, does this really push the plot forward? Not really. So let's get rid of it.
Yeah. I mean, that happens in a lot of movies.
It happens in a lot. Yeah. It's not, that is an old story in Hollywood.
Yeah. It's just a shame that the other version doesn't exist, especially when you get something that's a cult classic like this. I mean, we've seen so many movies that maybe weren't great at the box office, but had some cult status. I'm thinking about like the director's cut of The Abyss, and things like that.
Right.
That not available in the movie, but like when VHS, you get an extra, But once things went to DVD, and then Criterion Collection and Blu-ray and all that other stuff, they could make back some of the money that they lost on this movie if they had like an expanded version. That's how that works a lot of time. So
and you're right, there clearly is a market for that if
sure.
they were to come up with, if this were to suddenly surface and they did the clean it up and put it in 4K and do all of the tricks they can do to spruce it up, and documentaries and all that stuff, and that would be an instant seller, because again, there is a very loyal, rabid fan base for this movie now that would eagerly shell out the $50 or $60 to get that kind of a thing. And,
For sure.
And again, fingers crossed, right? Hopefully
maybe
somebody will go into a closet somewhere in Europe and go, hey, look at that. It says Event
What's
Horizon
this?
Original version. Throw it away.
Yeah. We made it through all of our points really well. I don't really have anything else to add to the conversation. You got anything else you want to add before we take a break?
Yeah, no, I don't. I like I said, Shining in Space, and when I look at it, I see the potential, of like what this movie could have been really great, and what we get is just entertaining. So I think that's kind of my quick, real brief review is that I enjoyed it, and I would say, watch it, but in my mind, there was a really great movie in there somewhere. They unfortunately just didn't find it.
Yeah, and I think what's great is that there's a lot of people out there that are okay with just being entertained.
Sure.
Which shows why this has such a good following. Is, some people are like, they love it for the potential of what it could have been, and some people are just like, I loved going along for the ride. Fun.
And it is a fun ride, I think the other thing that makes it such a cult thing is that the cast is all people that have gone on to be, incredible actors in genre pictures, particularly Sam Neill and Larry Fishburne. But I mean, everybody else in there, they're all, like I said, they're all amazing actors that we've seen, we know who they are. And the fact that they're all together, oh my God, this is going to be amazing,
It's amazing. Yeah. All right. Well, folks, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to discuss our listener feedback and what's coming up next on the podcast.
So everyone, please stick around. Do you see? Because we'll be right back.
Now there's about 20 of them out there.
What will we do?
Don't worry, we're safe in here. They'll never get in.
Why is it that in every zombie story, people always think that their safe haven is invulnerable?
I know. It's like, hello, the walkers are totally gonna get in. You better get ready for it.
No! Diane, get behind me. No, it's not stopping.
Do something, Jack!
And another thing, how come nobody in a zombie story has ever seen a zombie story?
Do you know how much time in human life would be saved if just one person in the group was up on the genre?
What do we do?
Aim for the head.
What?
Aim for the head.
You heard them. Aim for the head.
Quick, Diane, I think we should try and fix the barricades.
I think we should listen to them.
Now, that's the first good idea they've had all episode.
I still don't think they're gonna make it.
Aim for the Head, a horror apocalypse entertainment podcast. Join hosts Diana and Steve as they recap and discuss the best of horror, sci-fi, fantasy, and apocalyptic entertainment. Aim for the Head, available wherever you listen to podcasts. Find us on Instagram and Blue Sky.
Hey there, everybody. We are back. We're going to jump right into our listener feedback, which I don't want to sound like overly surprised, but we were just talking about this before we came back, and we tend to, when people are following along a full series with us, episode to episode, and people are following along, we get a lot more engagement that way. And we do, depending on the movie, we will sometimes get some decent feedback, but it's not very common for us to get as much feedback as we did for this movie, which just goes to show how, it resonates with people.
Absolutely.
Whether they love it, they didn't, they scared of it, who knows? So thanks to everybody who engaged with the post. A lot of it was stuff that I took from the Facebook, from the podcast's Facebook page and shared on my own page. So I got a lot of friends here that may have never commented before. So thank you, friend group. And we didn't put everybody's in here because some of them were just one-word responses here and there. But everybody that engaged, it was great to hear from you. And thanks so much. We love. That's the best part about doing this is being able to engage with other people and talk about stuff we really liked and enjoyed.
Absolutely. And I think what you said at the beginning is one of the reasons is that this movie was a staple on the free basic cable channels. from like 2000 to like 2012. I'm sure at some point somewhere during the day, every day you could find this movie airing somewhere. You know what I mean? So everybody watched it, like you said. It was always on. So everybody, whether they wanted to watch it or not, they ended up watching it. And so I think that's part of the reason why people are like, oh yeah, that movie was cool. It was weird. It was scary or whatever. But so they have an opinion. And I when I saw all the feedback, I was like, and I was kind of, real time as it would kind of show up on, being posted. I'm like, wow, we got another. Wow.
Another.
So it's very, very, very cool. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, lots of and it's great too because and this is for all our listeners too, is even just liking a post, like any kind of engagement. For some reason, a post that gets a lot of engagement ends up in front of people's eyes a lot more. So because of, say, someone who wrote a comment, it ended up in the feed of someone else who, it just chose to show like something popular that was happening or whatever. So the more engagement we got, it just sort of like fed off of each other. It was just lovely. And we don't get that terribly often. So, and certainly not for a movie. It's usually for a series or something like that.
Yeah.
So thanks again, everybody that connected. But here are some of the slices of feedback that we got. First up is my old pal from college, John Cotty. John, thanks so much for writing in. He actually wrote in on 2 different posts and gave his thoughts in sort of 2 different areas. But I sort of combined them into one. And John left us his thoughts via the Facebook. And the first thing he wrote in was that this was, quote, one of my all-time favorites. Scared the absolute duty out of me when I saw it in the theaters.
He said duty.
And then he just quoted Libera te tutime et en fairness, the Latin phrase. And then he wrote on a different post and he put, this shows his devotion to how much he really liked it. This is one I saw in the theaters, I bought on DVD, and then I upgraded it to Blu-ray. Mostly because I wanted to be able to see the split-second, and I'm using air quotes, horror shots of what had happened and what could happen to the previous and the present crew. So it's clearly talking about there's those 2 different scenes, the one where we see the video of what happened to the crew of the Event Horizon, and then there's also that scene where Weir puts his hand on Miller's head and gives him the vision of what's happening to his crew. And both of those move really fast. There's a lot of blood. There's a lot of
screaming and wailing and
So
torture.
you would have to really sort of slow it down to see what's going on. But I totally get that. And then he includes a little note, which I think is really interesting considering something you said unprompted a little earlier when we were chatting. And he says, unrelated-ish, have you seen Doomsday? Might be a good one for the podcast. And you mentioned it without any prompting. And what's funny is when he wrote that, I went and looked it up, and it does seem really interesting. It's sci-fi, it's horror, it's apocalyptic.
Yeah. And Sean Pertwee gets killed or in it, which is great. And the star is this gal named Rona Mitra, who was an actor from back then. And she literally is like the female Snake Plissken because she has a fake eye. And she has an eye patch. But the cool thing is in this is that she can like take her eye out and it's like a little camera and she can like roll it down the corridor and then like on her watch or something she can see what it sees, so she can use it to like peek around corners and stuff. And it is a really fun movie. Malcolm McDowell's in it, and what is incredible about it is that it's one of those things where like you think it's gonna be one kind of movie and then it like repeatedly changes genres. I mean, it almost qualifies as like an Italian giallo film in that it's like it's this kind of movie, then it's this kind of movie, then it's this kind of movie, and it's again super fun. So certainly something that's on the list here, and if we get a break from stuff, I would absolutely do it. This is a movie that I own physical media of because it was so cool when I saw it, and absolutely think it would be something that I think you would get a kick out of. So.
Yeah. Well, look at that, John. Unrelated, but also related. So we'll have to make sure that John knows once we decide to go.
I agree.
So,
cool.
Yeah. So, John, thank you so much for writing in. It's weird to call you John. I'm so used to just calling you Cotty. And so thanks for writing in your thoughts. Hope you write in again.
Yeah, absolutely.
If there's something else that we cover that you're interested in. So thanks again.
Absolutely, man. So cool.
Great to hear
Awesome.
from you. Thank
It's
you.
Very cool. All right, so moving on. Our next piece of feedback came from, super friend of the podcast, Mr. Joe Griffin. He's our humble narrator and, does music for us and is incredible. And his comment here, a little bit of the smart and the ass here from Joe, but his comment is, to this day, liberate te, liberate me is the only Latin Steve knows. And I would point out that, yes, that is true, but I am extremely fluent in Pig Latin. So there.
Yes.
So uche uppe. So anyway, yes, and for a long time, because this movie is obviously very old. Joe and I would often joke about liberate me. Are you sure that's what it said? I think it said liberate tudo me. No, liberate me. So yeah.
What if he said Liberace?
See, and I'm
Liberace.
I'm sure we did that too, which means save Liberace. That was the original version. It was Liberace.
Save Liberace.
So yeah.
Oh my God.
Anyway, Joe.
Liberace.
Yeah, see?
Yeah, exactly.
So.
All right. But thanks for writing in, Joe. Thanks. It's always fun to see you poke fun.
Oh yes, we all enjoy that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so next up is a friend of mine by the name of Bob Bocce. Another one where calling him Bob is weird to me because he was just Bocce.
We'll talk to Bob.
We'll allow it. So Bocce wrote in via the Facebook, and his reaction to seeing an image of Event Horizon was simply, "It is one of my all-time favorite movies ever." Well, there you go. So clearly he likes it. So yeah, thanks for your thoughts on it. Glad to know you liked it.
Very cool. Welcome to the party, pal. We appreciate you writing in. That's awesome. So, all right. So moving along, our next comment also via the Facebook. It's amazing that Facebook. A lot of people still do it. It's cool. This comes from Emily Padden, and I'm guessing you called her Padden.
No, just Emily,
okay.
I think.
Wow. What a way to break the pattern.
I know.
Anyway, she writes in and she goes, I am terrified to watch this movie, although A, I've read the plot, and 2, I like the detail of having the Aboriginal flag on their uniforms. And yeah, that's something that is a very small detail. So, that's very cool that you picked up on it. When they were doing the costume design for this movie, the idea was it's set in the future, and so they were trying to think, what will the flags possibly have changed? Could they be different? And so the English actors their characters are clearly English. They have a European flag on it, and it's not like the Union Jack. It's a different flag. And Sam Neill, he decided to not go with the Australian flag, which again I think has the Union Jack in it in one little part of it, and then a different design. And he said he wanted the Aboriginal flag because he made the guess that in the future that could be what the Australian flag turns into or changes to. And then very famously, Larry Fishburne, it's not on his uniform, but he's wearing like a necklace, and it has the Jamaican flag in a little circle, a little oval that's right under, in the center of his his chest there. You can see it sticking up above his shirt a lot in the movie. So yeah. He
actually touches it once or twice for like inspiration. Yeah. In the movie. Yeah. He touches it. I think that's a really cool detail.
Yeah. But Emily, good job. Either reading about that or picking up on that. But yeah, that is definitely a thing. And again, we didn't really talk about it, but I think the costume design in this movie is great. It's right up there with the look of Alien back in '79, where lots of patches on the uniforms and the jackets that they all have. They all have multiple pieces to their wardrobe, and they're all very lavishly set up with patches and logos and insignias, much like they would be, you would think, in real life. So yeah, good point. But thanks for writing in. That's really cool. I hope at some point you can work up the courage to actually watch the movie. So.
Yeah, I did say that in the post. I basically was like, you should. It's really great if you can, and not everybody feels like horror movies are a thing that they need to watch.
Yeah.
But,
Look, we're not.
It's definitely worth it.
We're not saying to watch it at 2 a.m. with all the lights off, okay? You can watch it during the daytime and, maybe have someone to hold their hand or something if you need to. But hopefully you can give it a try. And if you do, let us know what you think.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so next up, and thanks for writing in, Emily. I appreciate it. And next up, via the Facebook, we heard from my pal Anders Jacobson. Anders is a fantastic set designer. He's a really great guy. I haven't seen him in years, but obviously he had some thoughts on Event Horizon he wanted to share.
Most people do have thoughts with you.
And he wrote via the Facebook. They do have thoughts. And he wrote via the Facebook and says, I'm not a remake everything kind of guy, but this needs an update. I think the story is amazing, but the effects need improvement, especially on HD TV. And I did notice that on my TV that it did have some pixely moments. But then we had a side conversation after this. When I commented, we had a conversation about the soundtrack is very 90s electronica. It's like, we're gonna go salvage and rescue this ship into club.
Right. We're going to do it with EDM.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, that'd be an interesting thing to see this updated to sort of catch up with the science of HD, as it were. So yeah, good thoughts. Thanks Anders for writing in. I appreciate
absolutely.
it.
Very cool. Thanks for writing in. And in this day and age where, let's be honest, everything is being redone, it would not surprise me. It would not surprise me if this movie gets, hey, somebody has a new take on it. Okay. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Anders.
Thanks, Anders. So moving along, our next piece of feedback, this came from our pal Ellie Maitland. Hello, Ellie. How are you doing? And she, very, very short and to the point, but awesome. And she just said classic and had the heart emoji. So, yeah. And I think that's what a lot of the people that like this movie, that's kind of like the first thing that comes to their mind, that it's a classic, right?
Yes.
That this is a movie that a lot of people grew up with, right? That they were either teenagers when it came out or right after it came out and was on the aftermarket stuff, so they kind of grew up with it, and so yeah, it's like part of their childhood type thing. So when they think about it, they not only think of it, but they think of what they were doing and where they were in their lives when it they first saw it, and so that's kind of the reaction of classic. I love it. And so yeah, I thought that was really cool. So thanks for putting in your thoughts, Ellie. That's really cool.
Yeah, always nice to hear from you. Thank you. And then our last comment is from our probably one of our number one listeners, our pal, friend of the podcast, Bev2, who wrote in via the Facebook. And she said that in regards to Event Horizon, that it is, quote, scary, tense, weird, and I effing love Sam Neill. And then we had a side conversation as well, and I contend that Sam Neill makes a really good villain. And if you think about it, he's really only, I would say he's a good guy in the Jurassic Park series. And I think he's less of a bad guy and more of a cuckold in The Piano. But there's so many movies and instances where he is either the villain or he's not on the up and up or whatever. And I think he's really good. Have you seen him in Peaky Blinders? Oh my God, he's great. But that kind of role where, you know, you're so used to him being this guy from Jurassic Park, but then he embodies something like this. I think he does really good. He's really much better in that kind of a role, I think. I think my wife would disagree.
You know, I mean, the only thing I would say is that, you know, Dead Calm, he's great, and he's clearly the good guy in that, right? And like Hunt for Red October, he's one of the good guys. I mean, he's not, the villain in that either. So I think I can see him in anything. I don't look at him and like, oh yeah, that's the bad guy. You know, so there's some actors where you're like, I'm sure they're the nicest people in real life, but you're just like, oh my God, that's the bad guy. You know, because that's who they tend to play. And I think Sam Neill is a versatile enough actor that he can do whatever, whether he's a good guy, bad guy, you know, neutral guy, he can handle it. So, but you're right. He's good as the villain, no doubt, man. I mean, he's super scary in this. That's absolutely true. So, my big question with Bev's comment is, I myself, I need to know: is it sunny? Is it rainy? What's going on in Devon? I mean, you know, we don't have an update there.
Without a Devon update, is it? It could be someone impersonating.
We really don't know. Yeah. So I mean, that was my thing. Yeah. I'm like, what? No weather? So.
Yeah, it's without the Devon weather update, it's really hard to know if this is truly you. So send up a little sign of life so that we know it's you. It's funny because I'm looking at my notes that I wrote down to discuss on her podcast, which we should be seeing my episode with Bev probably in the early fall, since she only releases one per month. She had a little bit of a backlog there, but I can't remember. I feel like we might have talked about Event Horizon at some point, because I feel like it was like in the front of my brain when I saw it on that list, and I'm wondering, and I don't see it written in my notes, but I wonder if it came out in conversation, or maybe one of her other guests were discussing it. I don't know. I wasn't sure. Yeah. But anyway. But it's always great to hear from you, Bev, and thanks for letting us know what you thought of Event Horizon.
Yeah, that's so cool.
That's really good. Yeah. All right, so what's coming up on the podcast? Well, first of all, next week, if you live in America or you don't live in America, just so you know, next week is a holiday. It's Memorial Day in the United States next week, so we will all be off of work and thinking of those who have done the ultimate sacrifice for the U.S., for our military. So we will celebrate them, take a day off of work, and pause and remember all of them. And we'll also pause the podcast for a week. So we're going to take next week off as well, and, shake things off and get ready, because then 2 weeks from now, we're going to start covering a new series. Which we had a little bit of a side conversation. I'm not sure we mentioned it on the podcast, but it was one that Steve recommended that he came across on Shudder, and it's about 2 years old, I think. It's not brand new, but it's very modern. It's only a couple years old.
I think it's like 2024. I think that's when it. Yeah. So
right.
yeah. So it might not be exactly 2 years, but it's close.
Yeah. So it's this really great series. It's called The Red King, and it's on Shudder. And if you you know how to get there. You guys are horror fans, so you can either get there through, you can either have a subscription just to Shudder. If you've got a subscription to AMC Plus, as I do, that's how you can. That's a gateway. It's available as a channel via Amazon Prime. There's a lot of different ways to get to Shudder. And I think if you've never done one before, via your email address, I think Shudder is still one of those services where you can do 30 days for free and then cancel. So, I'm just saying. If Shudder is something that's not in the cards for you. But maybe you can share a Shudder account with someone. I didn't say that.
No,
I just said
we would never suggest
I don't want to get
that.
I don't want to get in trouble with Shudder. So it's a quick one. It's 6 episodes. Steve has watched 2 so far.
Yes.
And then he wanted to check in with me and see if we were going to be covering this. And I have only watched 1 so far. And I'm toying with the idea of stretching it out so that I'm surprised from week to week. So I think I might try doing that. And
that's what I'm gonna do.
Jumping ahead. Yeah, I'm gonna go week to week so that we'll be surprised. It's really hard to do that these days.
It
And
is.
since this is one that was not on my radar and I don't know how it ends. But it's very interesting. All I'll say about it is that it is sort of like a modern take and sort of retelling of the story of the Wicker Man. So if you're familiar with that, then you'll know what you're in for. Otherwise, it's a really great sort of crime drama with sort of a supernatural / horror element to it. So
Yeah.
we'd love to have you guys come along for the ride.
I would say it's more of like a cold case story,
Yes.
but it has more of like the occult woven into it
Okay.
than necessarily
Yeah.
supernatural. I think it's
Okay,
it's a reimagining of the 1972 film The Wicker Man, which starred Christopher Lee, not to be confused with the really, really awful Nicolas Cage version, which came out about 15 years ago. That do not watch that.
Tell me how you feel about
It's
it.
just not good. The original's great, and this is a sort of an updated version. Back in the original, the main character was a white dude who's a cop, and it was played by Edward Woodward, who to American audiences would recognize he played the Equalizer on TV in like the 1980s. We think of the Equalizer as this series of movies that Denzel Washington is doing, but originally it was a British guy that was the Equalizer character, and he's this is 1972, so he's a young British guy back then, and he is the main character. And now they've updated it, and it's like a Pakistani or an Indian woman who is the police officer, and she did the setup. She goes to this remote island off the coast of England and basically picks up this cold case and starts digging into it. And much like Minority Report warned us, the only thing that you can be sure of when you go digging up the past is that you're going to get dirty. And that's what happens. And yeah, it's like I said, I've seen The Wicker Man, so I kind of know that story. I'm not sure how closely this new version is following it, but so far, the first 2 episodes I've seen, I'm loving every minute of it. I'm definitely in lover boy territory. Yeah, it's I'm enjoying it. So I'm looking forward to it. I hope it continues on the way it's going, because I'm really getting a kick out of it so far.
Yeah, it really kind of, all of the description you gave to me on the surface sounded interesting. I've been reading a mystery series right now that's based in the UK. So, and I can't stop talking about how good Department Q was, which was last year. Right. And it just, I don't know what it is, but there's just something about a crime or a mystery that happens and it's in the UK, I just get drawn in by it. So I knew that I would at least like that aspect of it. And this has, like you said, the occult, and it's very sort of mysterious, especially in that first episode. I was drawn in immediately. Right after I finished watching it, I was like, so we're doing this, yes?
I got that text for you, and I'm like, yep, she liked it. Oh, yeah.
Yep, it's good. So I will probably just go back and watch episode 1 again to get some finer details on it. But check it out, folks, on Shudder. We'll get started on that one in about 2 weeks. I'll throw some posts up to remind you to watch it this coming weekend, and then we'll take next week off, and then the week after we'll start covering The Red King in its entirety. We're very excited. And also, speaking of excitement, we finally, the long national nightmare is over. We finally have a premiere date for the next season of Dead City. It'll premiere on July 26th. It's going to run for 8 episodes. If you do 8 weeks out from that, that'll have it ending at September the 13th. And that'd be a really good time to run another 8 episodes forward from there and have Daryl Dixon start probably right there. So I would assume that we're probably due for an announcement for Daryl Dixon's final season, and it'll probably, if it doesn't start right after Dead City and butt right up against it in September, then I would assume we'll see it in October then. So that's pretty exciting news to know that we've sort of got like the rest of the year kind of mapped out a little bit for us, which as podcasters we enjoy.
I agree. Yeah. Although I my thought is that there will definitely be a gap between Dead City and Daryl Dixon. My guess is if I were a betting man, I would say October, the first week of October is when they're going to start Daryl Dixon. But I have nothing to back that up. That's just, my the feeling that I have. So
yeah, it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling.
But hey, I was super excited that there are 8 episodes.
I think that's more than
I think they did 6 last year. I don't maybe they did 8 last year. I'd have to look it up, but it just seems to me like all of these seasons as we're moving forward in time, they're just becoming less and less, of shows. And so now it's like, hey, we did our season. It's 2 episodes long. It's like, is that really a season?
Yeah, and then we'll see you back again in 3 years.
Well, we do 2 more, So
yeah.
But anyway, I thought 8 episodes. I'm like, okay, that's cool. So, and again, new showrunners, we have new people at the helm here. So let's see what we're gonna do. And there's been a lot of social media on this that has been showing up, and they've been showing a lot of pictures of Lauren Cohen and Beth, Emily what's her name? Kinney, yeah. And they're together, and I know I think you either texted me about it or we were talking about it, but there has been some talk that one of the episodes in this bunch is like an alternate reality episode where Maggie is getting either, she's imagining or hallucinating or thinking about maybe what the world could have been. And obviously that means that Beth will, be back among the living and is going to be in the episode. So that I'm really intrigued to see what they're going to do with that and how that's going to work. And anytime you can bring, Emily Kinney back, I'm all for it. So
I think the thing that we should also be mentally prepared for is I've seen in a lot of the press that they've put out for this season announcement, they did mention the alternate reality episode, but I've seen a lot of Lauren Cohen and Jeffrey Dean Morgan went to the creators and they said, the showrunners, and they were like, can we take this feud and put it to bed this season? Basically, to make it, not the most important part of the show. But there was something in the way they were wording everything and making sure that it was a big part of the push for, getting the word out about the series. I wonder if part of the alternate reality shows them hooking up somehow.
Yeah.
And they need to because people have joked about that for years. Yeah. But if in an alternate reality something happened, Glenn wasn't killed and they ended up splitting up, would she, you know what I mean? I don't know how far they'd go with it, but the fact that they're priming people with the information to say, that feud is put to bed. We put it to bed in this, we take care of it and it's pretty much gone. They've moved on kind of thing. To make sure that that's part of the narrative as they release this stuff, I'm like, there's going to be something. There's either that or there's going to be some kind of heightened sexual tension between the two of them. Who the hell knows? But just be prepared for it, people. I think that's the only reason to sort of make sure that people know that they're making sure that past is the past kind of thing.
Hey, maybe it means that Maggie's going to kill him.
Maybe.
Maybe that's what they meant by that.
Possible.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe. That would put it to bed.
Talk about putting it to bed, yeah. And we haven't had any word if they're going to make this the final season or if they're going to come back for some more after this. So we'll have to see how that plays out. If it is the final, though, I kind of feel like they should wait, because then it's like, if it's the final season, it feels like it can only end a few ways. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just
I don't know.
But anyway, we'll see how they do. They're pretty bad at keeping those secrets, so I wouldn't hold out much hope on that end.
Right.
And then really, really quick before we wrap up, you went this week and saw one of the horror, like tons of really good horror releases into the theater this month, and you went to see one of them.
I did.
So let's talk about it a little bit.
I did. I went by myself. Huh. Anyway, I went and I saw Hokum, which my mini review is, first of all, I loved it. I highly recommend it. 2 thumbs up, all that stuff. But I should point out, when I saw it, I saw the trailer for Evil Dead Burn, which looks great. Although right in the trailer there is finger trauma, and that freaked me out. I'm not gonna lie. Somebody who's possessed gets their hand in a car door and all 4 fingers get cut off right in the screen, and I'm just like, oh my god! But anyway, that looks amazing. And I also saw a trailer for a movie that's out now called Obsession, which has been getting kind of mixed reviews, I think. But it's hilarious to me because years ago I wrote a 1-act play with basically the same premise. So I'm real curious to see how they did it versus what I came up with. But that was really cool. But yeah, Hokum, it's a movie. It stars Adam Scott from Parks and Rec. He's now currently on Severance. Everybody knows him and loves him. And he plays just real quickly, he plays this American author who goes to Ireland. The whole movie is shot entirely in Ireland. And he goes to this inn that, like, 50 years ago, his parents went there on their honeymoon, and they always talked about how much they loved it, and that was a great trip, and they kind of always wanted to go back, but they have since passed away. And so he's going there because he wants to spread their ashes in like the woods around this inn. And this inn is in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's like out in the boonies, right? It's not in a big city or anything. I mean, it's isolated. And he gets out there, and I hate when this happens on your vacation, when you find out that, oh yeah, the inn is haunted, and the entire top floor is the honeymoon suite, and the legend is that the owner of the inn trapped a witch in the honeymoon suite decades ago, and no one has been up there ever since, and the ghost of this witch haunts the place now. And he gets embroiled in all of that ghostly awesomeness, and the movie proceeds. It's great, and like I said, I loved it. A little note to all the Walking Dead fans, in that the very first actor that you see in this movie is our good pal Dwight, Austin Emilio. So
really?
He has a very small cameo at the very beginning, and he comes back at the very end. But that was really cool, because I'm like, as soon as they showed him, I'm like, man, that looks like Austin Emilio. And then when he said something, I'm like, that's Austin Emilio. So anyway, that was really cool. But the only thing I would say about this movie as a word of warning is that this movie is very dark. And when I say that, I'm not talking about tone. I'm talking about the amount of light in the movie, and that it is there. I mean, and that's sets up the atmosphere, and I haven't read anything about this, but it's my guess that they treated the movie. There's like a filter over all of it that mutes all the colors and reduces the amount of light and darkens everything up. And they did not use any studio lights in this. It's all natural lighting. So like when he walks into a room in this hotel and he flips the light switch on, the light goes on in the room, and that's the only light in the room. And then they put a filter on it, which makes it very dim, so that the corners of all these rooms and hallways is just dark and black, and you can't see what's there. And then you get to thinking, oh my God, is there something in the corner? And then that plays into the atmosphere and feel the movie. But I know that there are a lot of people out there that want to see what's in their movies, and they do not like those kind of things. That game show that you are super fond of. I remember hearing about a specific episode called, I think, The Battle of the Bastards, maybe. That is it's like an entire battle that's at night, and there was a lot of backlash because people said they couldn't see anything. And so if you are one of those people, that might be a red flag for you, because this movie is extremely dark in a lot of places, and I like that. I thought it added to the atmosphere and the terror and the suspense. But if that's not your thing, you might not enjoy it as much. But I highly recommend this movie.
Well, there you go. We'll have to make sure you get out there and see it, people. It'll probably only be in the theater for a short while.
I would imagine in about 2-3 weeks you can get it on streaming. So
yeah, because that's just sort of how it's been these days. Although things are pretty, we're heading into a holiday weekend. There has been kind of a resurgence of stuff at the box office. So maybe it'll stick around a little longer than normal. And who doesn't love a good horror movie as you head into the summer?
Absolutely.
So there's that. Anything else we should chat about before
No,
we wrap
we've
up?
been chatting way too long. Let's call it.
Let's
pull the plug on this baby.
Pull the plug. That's how it always goes for us. All right, so that's going to do it for us this week, folks. Once again, we're going to take a week off, but we'll look forward to chatting with you again in another 2 weeks. But until then, as always, I'm Diana.
I'm Steve.
And don't forget to always aim for the head.
Because those body shots, they just don't work.
To send us an email, write us at aimfortheheadpodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @AFTH Podcast. Pictures and video are always welcome at our Instagram account, Aim for the Head Podcast, all one word. But the best way to keep in touch with us is to just like our Facebook page to get all of our updates in your feed.
She left.
Okay, bye. Bye.
Bye.
Enjoy your soup. Wow, there was some.
There was
some
tone.
meanness. She was like, "Enjoy your soup."
There was definitely tone there. I want you to know.
I live with the tone. I know the
You
tone.
do.
That was tone.